Rob to talk you through all this.
Hi Rob and chat people. He got to see one of the best pitching performances by a Cub in history yesterday.
Two, hello. Two, check.
You can count on me. You're gonna
Check
have good
two,
old
hello.
Rob to talk you through all this.
TRRS drums.
Sam Sider. Thank you, Sam, for 28 months of Tier 1. Thank you, Sam, and thank you, Jack, as well, for 17 months. Resub at Tier 2. Hell yeah, Jack. And hey, that's a good time to remind anyone that if you ever want to, and I'm not telling you what to do, but if you ever want to upgrade your TRRS subscription to a Tier 2 or Tier 3, there's some even better tiny little images in those higher tiers. As you may know, if you ever want to upgrade those right now in September, you can do so at a discount. It is, I believe, 30% off or 35% off or something along those lines. So if you want the tiny little images, the even more exclusive tiny little images, that's how you get those. What's up, folks? It's nice to see you. Hello. You might have noticed, some people have noted that I'm getting started a little bit earlier. You can also slub for 6 months. That's right. Yeah, getting started a little bit earlier. I think just my one of my observations, something that I've been thinking about for a while, and something that really occurred to me like this summer, doing some of these longer streams, is that I think in order for me to be able to like talk about everything that we need to talk about every day, and in order for me to like, you know, take the time necessary to hit the targets that I'm trying to get to, I feel like I need at least 4 hours. I've been crunching the numbers. I would like the show moving forward to be minimum 4 hours long. Like even 4 hours is tough to raise. It's hard to raise 35 subs in 4 hours, but I think that needs to be the minimum. And some days I have kind of a hard cutoff because of school stuff. Like today I got to go at 3. It's the first day of school. I got to get out of here like at 3 exactly. So thinking that I'm going to start doing the show a little earlier. Maybe the chit chat part can be the grab a cup of coffee Rob AM segment, and then in the PM you move into the serious business, something along those lines. It doesn't have to be that official or whatever, but I do think I'm going to be making an effort, especially getting into season 4 in the coming weeks. We're 8 weeks away from season 4. Exactly 2 months away from the start of TRRS season 4. So I think I'm going to be at least making an effort to, and I should be able to do this, unless like some other thing comes up, of starting the show at 11 a.m. Eastern Standard Time. So, I'm going to try that. Often I have a hard time even starting at noon, but I'm going to try starting the show closer to 11 a.m. Eastern Standard Time. That's 12 p.m. No. It's actually, okay, that's tricky. It's 11 a.m. Eastern Standard Time, and it's 12 a.m. Pyongyang time, if you're keeping Pyongyang time. So that's kind of my tentative plan. Season 4, 4-hour stream, 40-year-old Rob. That's right. What could it mean? What could it all mean? And I think some days I'll be going beyond 4. I think ideally to get to where I need to be.
You can count on me. You're going to have good old Rob to talk you through all this.
GM chat. GM Rob. Happy Manitoba Election Day 1 to all who cringe.
Nedlocked, thank you so much. 34 months. Tier 1 from Nedlocked. Thank you, Nedlocked. We're going to have to probably check in on that, shouldn't we? As depressing as I'm sure it is. Yeah, ideally, I would like to do a bit more. I think ideally I would like to be able to do the show, if I want to get where I need to be, about 5 to 6 hours, which I think is pretty standard actually for people that regularly stream on Twitch. I think last year we're opening the show with some serious inside baseball talk here, but last year I think the show was probably 3 hours, maybe 3.5, and rarely longer than that. And I just don't think that's, in terms of building the community and finding viewers and getting slubs or whatever, I just don't think that's going to cut it. So I'm going to really start hustling. I'm embracing hustle culture. And I'm going to start doing TRRS between 4 to 6 hours per episode, depending on what the schedule is. Some days I have a later schedule. I'm able to go later because of after school stuff. Some days I have a harder cutoffs, but I think part of that is going to be starting the show at 11. I'm going to start the show at 11 a.m. Eastern Standard Time, 12 a.m. Pyongyang time. Oh, that's good. It's a hot one today. It's a hot one. I was bragging the other day on the social network Blue Sky and was talking with our friend Red Scary about how it was jacket season. I kind of thought maybe we were in jacket season. There was this big kind of, not cold front, but it was it was total jacket weather for a couple weeks here in Montreal. Getting into late August, early September. And it's back up to 30 degrees. What's that? I don't know, 88 Fahrenheit, something, 87, something like that. So super hot again. You can see my hair's getting all curly too because of the humidity. We got a little false autumn. That's right. Yeah, and it is yummy cinnamon challenge. I made this iced coffee. I had one of my favorite breakfasts this morning. One of my very favorite breakfasts, which is I have a coffee or an iced coffee, a banana, and I don't eat a lot of bananas, but for some reason in the morning with my coffee, a banana is kind of nice. And it kind of feels like I'm doing something sort of healthy. And then a non-healthy component, though, which is a pastry. And I got a couple of options right next to me here. I can either get a very fancy pastry or just a totally low-rent extremely cheap honey bun from the dépanneur, which I went with today. So I have, especially on today, I have my iced coffee, my honey bun, and my banana. And it's pretty satisfying. And this is iced coffee number 2. Because not only is it nice and cool, but of course I'm always fucking tired and have no energy either. So it's helping on that front as well. Oh, that's really satisfying. That's really, really good. Oh. I feel like I used to have some sleeveless shirts and tank tops and stuff, but I don't know where any of them are. I think today would be a sleeveless shirt day for me, if I could find one of them. Because it's hot. It is hot up here right now. I got the door open. I got the fan going. I got a wind tunnel, but it's not... Sometimes, it's hot, and then with the wind can come through, and it's like kind of nice. The air right now is so stagnant and just like moist with humidity. There's no breeze, there's no wind whatsoever, so my fan is just blowing hot air from outside, like inside where I am. It's pretty bad. It's pretty bad today. Like after going to school with my kid, I was just drenched in sweat when I came back. Oh, it's very satisfying. So it was the first day of school today for my kid. As I mentioned last week, that got unexpectedly postponed for a week. That's why I was not around last week. And that's why I did those epic streamathons this weekend. And I must have thank everybody that came to hang out with me this weekend. It was a lot of streaming this weekend. Streamed 16, 17, 18 hours or so over the course of the weekend to try and make up for the week that I missed. And it was really fantastic that people were here hanging out and watching and chatting, and I really appreciated that the community was around for that. That was a lot of fun. But that's what that was all about. Today was the very first day of school now, and it was just total chaos. Just complete chaos. And it's like, it's frustrating. My kid really relies on routine, as a lot of kids do. It's the first day of school. Like, you want to be able to go and see, oh, there's your class, there's your teacher. You want your parents to be with you to kind of send you off. And as I said, the reason the school was postponed was because the whole backyard has just been dug up. The whole backyard is completely dug up. They're doing a bunch of renovations both inside and outside. As I was saying, they had the whole summer to do this. I understand that these are big projects, but to me, when you say you have their school is over, you have 2.5 months. So what, just get it done. Whatever you need to do, 2.5 months should be enough time to renovate the inside and outside of a school. That's what I've been saying, Moss. China would have had it done in a week. I mean, at least it would have been done on time. Yeah, they would have had 3 teams on it night and day until it was done. And if there was a crooked developers or administrators that were responsible overseeing this thing that completely failed to meet their targets and fucked up the beginning of the school year for hundreds of kids, they would have consequences for that. We're talking bare minimum, a public apology and losing their jobs. Bare minimum, But here we just expect that. Here it's just oh yeah, that's just a totally normal thing to have happen. When you live in a city that's just run by this crooked cartel of developers and police unions, which is most major cities in Western liberal democracy, where corruption is just totally legal, and failing to live up to these responsibilities just completely not only even normalized, but almost encouraged. Anyway, so at his school, it was just total chaos, just hundreds of kids showing up at the side doors. You can't go into the back part where they normally go into the school. hundreds of kids out there, like no real system or anything. It was just like, you send your child into school and there's a bunch of adults in there and they know what class they have to go to, and like they're just going to like sort them out when they go in. And it was like, it was truly incredible. No real system. It was just a big mass of kids, and they all just had to go into the school, and he knew like what class he was going to, and just go wander around the school until you get where you're supposed to go. That was basically the system that's in place right now. So like, it's just nerve-wracking. Like I said, you're a parent, you want your kid to be comfortable on the first day, you want to be able to like have the same fucking routine. They're little kids, you know, they need to have that. So there's just none of that. It's just complete. It was like if I organized a school, like bringing kids into a school. It was like if someone like me, like someone that had severe ADHD and left it till the day before. What do you do? That's pretty much what was going on in my kid's school. So I don't know. He seemed okay. He seemed fine. He seemed kind of excited to see his friends and stuff, but pretty frustrating. They're like, maybe we're crossing our fingers that the yard's going to be done next week. And let me tell you, folks, it's not going to be done. I'll tell you that right now. It is not going to be done at all. I don't even know if it's going to be close to being finished. Maybe Thanksgiving they'll have like a backyard to play in and stuff like you're supposed to have at a school. I don't know. Is it noisy like the construction? I mean, I imagine so. They hired the Rob Rousseau of project managers for it. Exactly. And listen, I'm not trying to sell myself short here. I'm good at a lot of stuff. If you want to hire someone to like entertain a bunch of like neurodivergent adults with radical political beliefs, I can do that. I'm good at that, you know? If you want me to jump on the content hamster wheel and churn out podcasts and video content for people to entertain themselves with and maybe learn and grow a little bit, I can do that for you, you know? I'm good at that. But if you want to ask me to organize this like very complex and important thing that's going to affect hundreds of different families and little kids, I would not be the man for that. I don't think that would be a good idea. Anyway, that's what's going on with me right now with the family. I hope that's going to be okay. I mean, I'm sure it probably will, but definitely not an ideal situation. Not an ideal start to the year, I would say, to say the least. Are they not going outside for recess? Well, what inflicted it? There's no AC and it's fucking 90 degrees outside. There is like a park and a yard nearby. Like I'm gonna go pick them up later, and it's like at this yard, like that's not even at the school. It sucks. It sucks. I hope it's not going to be like this for long, but I have a sneaking suspicion that it is going to be a lot longer than they're anticipating. Whatever though. They'll blame it for being publicly run even though private companies do the construction work. I don't even know that. Like, I don't even think anyone, like, it's totally, this kind of thing is so totally normalized in both Quebec and Canada in general that, like, it's not even no one's going to even be blamed for it. Everyone's just going to be like, the construction wasn't finished, so this is what we're doing, you know? I hope at least the weather cools. I don't know. I think it's supposed to be like this, like, a lot of the week. Fuck, I have to open up this fork. Yeah, it's boiling hot this entire week. Tomorrow 32, Thursday 31, Friday 28. It's just like this for the foreseeable future.
And have good old Rob to talk you through all this.
Slightly Tethered, thank you for the 20 months tier 1. Thank you, Slightly Tethered. I appreciate it. I did go to the public pool yesterday. That was nice. I went to the public pool. That was very refreshing. A lot of people were there, but it was nice. It was nice to go for a little swim. May have to go today, actually, now that I'm thinking about it. After sitting inside all day at my computer, it may be necessary for me to go for a little dip later, although I'm sure it's going to be very full. How was everyone's Labor Day? How was your Labor Day? Did you grill? Any grill heads in here? What did you get up to? Anyone grill some stuff and have some ice cold brewskis? Anything along those lines? That's all I really did. I just went swimming. That's all. That was my main thing that I did. And I ate a steak. I ate a steak and some mushrooms. It was nice. Burned myself on the grill. Hell yeah. We had brats and chicken pastor. That sounds great. That sounds fantastic, actually. Chilling and grilling. It was our first anniversary. So my partner and I had a fancy dinner out. That sounds nice. Very nice. Oh boy, my hair is getting really wild here. I'm starting to look pretty disheveled. I'm really starting to look like I'm starting to get the Marxist revolutionary look. I think when I'm too clean cut, I lose a little the edge. I lose a little bit of the edge. When I'm all disheveled like this, I think it works for me. Yeah, I just made a steak. It was nice. I didn't have any. I was out of butter and I didn't realize. So usually when I'm doing a steak, I like to do that butter basting method. You're getting you have the steak on the grill. You give it a nice sear. You flip it and then you add some butter and you're giving it you're basting it. So the butter gets all foamy. That's what I usually try to do, but didn't have any butter, but it was still very good. It was still very nice. Just need a scarf of some sort for those young Stalin vibes. That's true, yeah. Just some kind of accessory. Need to accessorize just a little bit to really nail that look. So I am happy to be I'm happy to be getting back to doing the show at a normal time. This is really like the end of the summer schedule or the summer schedule. So from now on, as I said, I'm aiming to start a little bit earlier just to make sure that I have enough time to do everything I need to do and try and hit the targets I'm trying to hit. But the show will be back now Monday to Friday. Monday, not yesterday, obviously, but until probably the winter, or unless there's a couple of holidays in there or whatever. But the show's back on schedule, back on schedule. That iced coffee was very, very satisfying. I don't think I leaned on that enough. I got some fridge water. I might just have to get out an ice pack and put it on the back of my neck at one point too. It's that hot right now. So I am really gonna have to. Like I said, we got season 4 coming up. Season 4 of TRRS, which is hard to believe, isn't it? It's hard to believe. It seems like only yesterday that I said, oh, I should try to give this whole Twitch thing a start or a shot. You know? What about that? What if I just turned that on one day? What if I covered the U.S. election, and then maybe we could talk about it the next couple of days? I wonder if anything interesting is going to happen. And lo and behold, all of a sudden 3 years have passed. 3 years have now passed, and here I am, heading into year 4. It's really hard to believe, but like I said, I am going to try and... I'm going to put together some kind... I'm stuck in the hamster wheel, that's right. God damn it. God damn it. I am going to try to put together some kind of little retrospective or clip show that we can laugh at a little bit. I'll try to have a few maybe subtle visual changes, some new backgrounds. We're going to have new sub badges. We're going to have new emotes. Lodane has been made really cool emotes, months ago, which I have not implemented yet because my brain is bad. My brain is bad, so I avoid doing these very little simple things that I probably could have done, a long time ago. But I'll make sure for season 4 we got that. I just noticed Netlocked, when Netlocked resubbed. What was that? 34 months. So we're good. We got to get new 36 months. Pearl, the highly exclusive Pearl sub badge. I'm going to go ahead and create that in the next week, or try to, so make sure that's ready for when we get to the people at that incredibly momentous number. Yeah, we can do a little best of, Sasha. And you weren't around for a lot of it, too, so maybe you can catch up on some lore. Catch up on some Rob lore. We got tons of verbal flubs and highlights and different things that have happened throughout the years here. And I'm going to do some effort to cobble those together into some kind of entertaining or enjoyable video package. And tons to talk about today as well. Tons to talk about today. I got a couple of notes here. I got a couple of interesting things to get into. If you don't mind, I'm just going to go ahead and take my fan and aim it towards myself a little bit more. One sec. Talk amongst yourselves. The whole Oliver Anthony Burning Man thing is quite funny for a number of reasons. First of all, I'm interested to know who he was there with. This common man got lectured so much from all these right-wing guys, and even a lot of these sort of maybe Jacobin orbit social democrats lecturing us about supporting this guy, and people like Midwestern Marks, who had an interview with Oliver Anthony scheduled, which he had to not do because he was hanging out at Burning Man with all these libertarian tech millionaires and billionaires, all the common men, all the common salt of the earth working folk who hang out at Burning Man every year. So that's kind of funny, but it also led to some something very interesting. Let's take a look at it, actually. And like with the caveat as well that, folks, you know that I have tried to, I've rated Eddie from Midwestern Marks before. I feel like I have to do this fucking caveat every time this comes up now, though. But Eddie's a person that I enjoyed his analysis of like foreign policy and imperialism and history. I appreciated how he was speaking to this audience of disaffected young men and found an audience on TikTok to push back against imperialist lies and stuff. And I kept wanting to believe that they weren't being pulled into that sort of like patriotic socialist, MAGA communist, whatever you want to call it. It seems like they have a foot in that. They've maybe avoided going all the way. Like, I know he's been supporting Cornel West. He talks about Cornel West a lot. He hasn't become one of these RFK Jr. guys, but of course they were big on promoting this Oliver Anthony thing as well, which was I think an L for them. So I'm just going to look at a little little nesting doll here of tweets to talk about this. Oliver Anthony interview postponed by flooding. Midwestern Marks.
Use the computer to mark up the size of the account.
Dimitri, what is this? Thank you, Dimitri. They wanted to stand on that hill, and they did indeed die on the mud-soaked trench foot-inducing hill. That's right. Thanks, Dimitri. So I don't know if they addressed this up front.
Hello, everybody. Welcome to the Midwestern Marks live stream. Little disappointed here that our man Oliver Anthony has been trapped in the flooding at Burning Man. This is what he told us over email. He was still hoping to make it today, but 70,000 people are stranded in the Nevada desert right now. Organizers of the event have told people to take shelter to try and stay warm and conserve food, fuel, and electricity. So sounds like it's pretty bad. Somebody's died already also.
So that's the number one thing, right? So we talked about that Oliver Anthony and the kind of fake astroturfed aspect of that, all these right-wing guys pushing that, the shitty Reaganite class politics that were on display in that song, and why it was really worth critiquing. And you had Eddie at Midwestern Marks just at every step of the way insisting that like they were correct for, supporting that and promoting that, and have been kind of bending over backwards to apologize for this guy. The more that he talked about these incidents and talked about, it tried to make this just retroactive justification for the lyrics. It was actually about the politicians and the unhealthiness of food that were forcing people on welfare to eat, and like all these like obvious like spins that were being put on these just what I thought to be just like bad lyrics. It's a bad lyric that has this kind of like Reaganite economic message, this faux right-wing populism to it. That's as simple as it can be broken down to, I don't think the guy's fucking Satan himself or anything like that, but it was a shitty lyric. If you're 5'3" and you're 300 pounds, taxes ought not to pay for your bags of fudge rounds. I think it's pretty unambiguous, like what that's a reference to. And I just think that's not only is that a bad political message, but it's just a bad lyric as well, just from a songwriting standpoint. And if it was a good lyric, you wouldn't have to then retroactively go and justify it and talk about, I actually meant this. It's just a bad lyric. So I don't think you don't really need to overthink it more than that. The Midwestern Marks Institute were obviously kind of constantly kind of spinning this and justifying their support of this. And then scheduled this interview with Oliver Anthony, which was supposed to take place over the weekend, but he's trapped at Burning Man. And who is Oliver Anthony at Burning Man with? That's a question as well. Is he hanging out with a bunch of poor, disaffected working class people? No, I don't think so. That, in my understanding, that's not really what it's about. But he gets stuck there, and then then they postpone the interview, and then look at this. This is very interesting, and I would just ask anyone, if for I don't like talking shit on here. I don't want people to snitch tag or whatever it is. I don't like to cause drama with people or call out people, but I will just say that if Eddie or anyone from the Midwestern Marx Institute happens to see this, and I've justified all these things with this is all what I'm trying to make is a good faith critique over people that I do think have done work that I think has value, right? I'm not just trying to be a dick or just trying to clout chase or whatever it is, cause drama. I don't really care for that kind of stuff. Having said that, though, just so that's clear, right? I would just ask, if Eddie or anyone from the Midwestern Marx Institute is looking at this, I would just ask to pay attention to the kind of people that are not only promoting and supporting Oliver Anthony, all these right-wing Daily Wire guys. It was very clearly kind of astroturfed. But look who's promoting themselves right now. Look at this. Grace Chong. Grace Chong says Oliver Anthony stuck at Burning Man, so interview has been postponed on Marx Midwest. Who's Grace Chong? Grace Chong is the CFO or COO of War Room. War Room, which is the Steve Bannon media radio show or whatever it is. Steve Bannon, of course, the former editor-in-chief of Breitbart, a far-right racist news network, and also Trump's close advisor, one of the masterminds behind his 2016 campaign, and one of his his chief of staff for some time, one of his top advisors. If you didn't know who Steve Bannon was, obviously everyone should know who he is at that time. So why the fuck is Grace Chong of Steve Bannon ally supporting now or promoting Midwestern Marx? And I understand that when people levy these kinds of accusations, you're doing Red-Brown Alliance stuff, you're promoting fascism, whatever it is. I understand that can be upsetting, but when there's actual people like this supporting and promoting your work, I would ask anyone that's involved in this that really does think of themselves as being a Marxist or a socialist or whatever to maybe ask themselves some critical questions about why that is. Why is that happening? I kind of wish that people would maybe have some introspection here, unless this is what they're into and this is what they want, giving the extreme benefit of the doubt, I would ask if it's Eddie or whoever else that's involved in this to start asking some questions about their new audience here and the kind of people that are now supporting and promoting their content. And if you don't want to be accused of having this kind of Red-Brown Alliance, fascist sympathy kind of thing, I understand those accusations are upsetting, but it's kind of just right here for everyone to see. So if that's what's going on, I do think maybe some introspection or some self-criticism might be in order here to ask why that is, just as I would do if somebody far right-wing ghoul was promoting my content. I would say, well, hey, wait, whoa, what's going on here? What am I doing wrong here? And I can't really see that happening. Maybe because of one of my stances on Russia, Ukraine or something, that might be of interest to some of these far-right guys, but I have talked endlessly as well that while we can see people like Tucker Carlson or Vivek Ramaswamy or whoever making what I would agree to be correct arguments about Ukraine, that doesn't mean that these people are allies, that we should tail their reactionary beliefs or be involved in or associated with them in any way, shape, or form. Wild to see things told play out in real time. I mean, that's exactly right. When you have Steve Bannon acolytes now supporting and promoting you because of your beliefs, you have to start wondering, is it the ultra leftists that I'm complaining about that are wrong here, or have I gone off the rails a little bit? So I would hope that anyone that's involved with that crew, if they do have these kind of principles that they claim to, I would think that it would be a good idea to ask themselves these kinds of questions. And I mean this in the most generous and comradely way possible. You know, I think it's probably time for some introspection. Excuse me, some introspection from our friends at the Midwestern Marx Institute, who, as I've said many times, including like 5 fucking minutes ago, have done a lot of things that I think is important and that I support and agree with. But I think we got to be careful with this kind of thing. And like promoting Oliver Anthony and even getting Oliver Anthony on your show might bring a lot of eyeballs to your stream and your content. It might bring in a bunch of subs, but I think when you start going down this path, regardless of whatever financial motivation there is, which I understand because we're all trying to make a living on here, but like, that's a dangerous situation, I think. They knew who took the seed money from the jump. Do you mean like the Oliver Anthony thing with like the original push of the song and the right-wing people that are promoting that? I was just hoping I could get your comments on this. Yeah, I mean the LaRouche thing. I mean, well, that's a whole separate thing. Hey Brian, what's up? What's this here? That's right. And you can take this to the bank, but I, Rob Rousseau, love getting DP'd. That's right.
This is some
and
guy, Rob Russo, some leftist based in Canada. I was turned on to this sick individual, and I found this.
Left flank vets, just forget about that. Don't worry about that. Don't worry about what you just heard. It's not important, okay? It's not important. We don't need to worry about it. It's not a big deal. Thank you, left flank vets, for the raid. I appreciate it a lot. Bring it on in here, raiders. I'm happy to see you. It's good to have you. Folks, if you can, smash the follow button. I'm so close to 9,000 followers here on Twitch. I'm so close to 9,000 followers. So if you want one thing you can do to support me, which is completely free of charge and takes like 5 seconds out of your day, is to just click the little heart button, the little follow button. You're like a hotter version of Pedro Pascal. I think I want to frame that comment. I think I get a lot of mean and hurtful comments about my appearance sometimes.
Good old Rob to talk you through all this.
Rob 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 Robert.
Thank you, John. Thank you, John McCain's Ghost, for 28 months. Resub at tier 2. I appreciate it.
You can count on me. You're going to have good old Rob to talk you through all this.
And thank you, Diego, as well, for the gifted sub. My mustache is looking walrusy. Yeah, I'm really leaning into the kind of disheveled look right now. If you're just joining us, forget what you just listen. Forget about this clip. You don't need to think about this. You don't need to comment on this. That's right. And you can take this to the bank, but I, Rob Rousseau, love getting DP'd. That's a quote that was taken out of context. It's completely taken out of context. Possibly a deep fake as well. I haven't really done enough analysis to determine like how real that clip is. I think it may have been artificially created. So my point is, though, don't pay attention to that. Okay? You don't need to pay attention to that. But here's something that's important that we were just talking about. Here's something important that we're just talking about, which is this. Here's the question. We saw how our friends at the Midwestern Marx Institute, and again, my criticism of this comes from a place of respect, and I hope everyone understands that. But the Midwestern Marx Institute, who kind of really jumped on board this like Oliver Anthony thing, promoting and supporting that, had an interview with him scheduled that was called off because of... Jay, don't get me started on this. Don't get me started on this. The interview with Oliver Anthony was called off because Oliver Anthony was rubbing elbows with the common working class men and women that hang out at the Burning Man festival. So the interview was called off, and then I was wondering why it is that someone like Grace Chong is out here saying Oliver Anthony stuck at Burning Man. So interview has been postponed on Midwest Marx. Grace Chong is the CFO/COO of Steve Bannon's War Room. I think it's a little weird, and I think if you're running in if you're running like a streaming thing or like a media thing, and you're trying to like spread class consciousness, talk about anti-imperialism, talk about socialism, or act like a revolutionary, you got to ask yourself a question when you start getting signal boosted by Steve Bannon acolytes. What's exactly going on here? Dimitri, thank you for the gifted sub. I appreciate that. Thing is, Midwestern Marx is not. They are a left-wing grift, giving Iowan communists a bad name. Well, this is the thing, Brian. Is like I know that they've kind of had a foot in that whole world, the patriotic socialist or MAGA communist world or whatever. I will just continue saying, though, like I discovered Eddie and Midwestern Marx and the work that he does on TikTok, where I think he does a lot of really good and important stuff, talking about history and imperialism and U.S. foreign policy. This excerpt sums up the Western socialist perspective of Oliver Anthony's song. What's that, Dimitri? Let me see. What is this from, Dimitri? You can't have it both ways, and I agree, Brian. I agree, and that's exactly why, though, because regardless of what's been going on, Eddie is someone that I have respect for, or at least at one point did. So that's why I make these kind of criticisms, because he is someone that I would hope does have values that will maybe like allow them to realize some of the stuff. I don't know. Maybe not, though. Maybe I'm just hanging on to something that's not there. That's entirely possible as well. The mirror this is a clip from Dimitri sent this. The mere recognition that they're rich and poor, or even that corporations exploit people, any idiot can see this, cannot constitute class consciousness. The long history of unionism in the coal counties shows this. Class consciousness implies a participation in the class war. While such a consciousness certainly can involve fighting for better wages, it cannot be limited to or even centered on this. The Euro-American left has completely mystified the question of class consciousness. They see in every labor strike, in the slightest twitch for reform, examples of proletarianism. Some socialist scholars, a self-awarded title to be sure, conduct almost anthropological expeditions into the settler masses, seeing in every remembered folk song or cultural nuance some profound but hidden nuggets of working-class consciousness. Others who have spent years as working-class experts find proletarian vision in every joke about the bosses told during coffee breaks. This is not politics, whatever else it may be. There is nothing mystical, elusive, or hidden about real working-class consciousness. It is the political awareness that the exploiting class and its state must be fought, that the laboring masses of the world have unity in their need for socialism. The Red Army is class consciousness. An action for higher wages or better working conditions need not embody any real class consciousness whatsoever. Narrow self-interest is not the same as consciousness of class interests. More for me is not the same slogan as liberate humanity. Lenin wrote on this, only when the individual worker realizes that he's a member of the entire working class, which includes, of course, indigenous people, gay and trans and queer people, black and brown people. It includes the struggle for social and racial justice, LGBTQIA plus rights, etc. Only when the individual worker realizes that he's a member of the entire working class, only when he recognizes the fact that his petty day-to-day struggle against individual employers and individual government officials is a struggle against the entire bourgeoisie and the entire government, does the struggle become a class struggle. That is very interesting. Hello, Marty. What's up? So I don't know. I think that's a problem, though. I think that's a problem when your content starts being signal boosted by like Steve Bannon acolytes and these like open fascist types. Sorry, is what true? Green key? Is what true? Oh, that's just my hello phrase. Sorry if that confuses people. That's extremely confusing. Yes. That is extremely confusing, I must admit. Hey, Hildy Beast, how's it going? Remember, Steve Bannon said he's a Leninist. Well, I mean, that gets back to like a lot of these patriotic socialist types supporting things like January 6th or the trucker convoy. Those are two incidents that a lot of these people have like rallied around, right? Because they think if it's like against the state, if you're trying to like disrupt or overthrow the state, then it must be Leninist, right? And we must support it, which is not true. I mean, that is not true. When you have a bunch of fucking yahoos trying to overthrow the United States or the Canadian government because they think Joe Biden or Justin Trudeau are radical communists, and they want this country to be even more fucking racist and fascist than it already is currently. No, that's even if we don't like the government or we don't like the state or the people that run it. No, we do not have to support that. No, we do not. These people are not just they're not our allies just because they hate the government. They hate the government for all the wrong reasons. They hate this fantasy version of the government that they've invented in their minds, in their diseased minds. So no, they're not just automatically our allies. In fact, they openly talk about it, like we talked about as well with the whole gray zone thing. And the fact that like they organized this anti-war rally with like libertarians, and they're like, why don't these ultra-leftists want to be part of our anti-war rally? And then fucking months later, you have the exact same libertarians being like, communism is a disease, McCarthyism didn't go far enough. These people are not our friends. They're not our allies. Even if we might have some things that we might agree on when it comes to foreign policy or the state being bad or any things like that. They're not our friends. If these people take power, they want to throw us out of fucking helicopters. They openly fantasize about this. Why are you trying to build coalitions with them? Why are you trying to start anti-war rallies with them? Like, what the fuck? That's not a strategy towards building class consciousness, tailing the worst reactionaries in your society. You do not gotta hand it to them. No, we don't have to have barbecues with these fascists. No, we do not. That's the argument that I've been making since, when that trucker convoy was happening, and a lot of the very same people. Why are you not supporting this authentic working class movement? Because you don't support this, you must support the big pharma globalist agenda. Because these adults having a fucking tantrum about vaccine mandates and calling into question the whole idea of like healthcare and vaccines and like these drugs in the first place. That doesn't mean that I support big pharma, These people don't believe the U.S. Revolution was a counter-revolution. They think it was a colonial liberation. Yeah, I mean, it's just preposterous. Just absolutely preposterous. And you're never going to appeal to reactionaries and libertarians by taking this nationalistic view of U.S. or Canadian history. You will never appeal to them wrapping your Marxism in the American flag or the Canadian flag. You just won't. And I might be amenable to the kind of argument that, like, doing the Death to America chant might be alienating to some people that are not ready to hear that message. You don't need to go to a union protest and fucking spit in someone's face if they have an American flag or Canadian flag. But at the same time, we don't need to wrap our Marxism or our socialism in these nationalistic symbols or tail these reactionary beliefs about trans people or whatever the latest obsession is, to appeal to these folks. We do not. And there's a lot of talk right. There's like these January 6th sentences coming down right now, which are pretty fucking harsh. And you know what? I don't really support these like harsh sentences. I don't have any affinity for the United States government or the fucking Capitol building. I don't really care. I don't agree with these people. These are again, they're reactionaries who want America or our society in general to be more fascist than it currently is. I don't think you need to be sentenced to 18 years in jail for being stupid enough to go along with this. But I would say, though, that if you don't want to be sent to jail for 18 years, one of the things you want to avoid doing is when a obvious billionaire, one of the most notorious con men and grifters in the fucking world, Donald Trump, and a bunch of federal agents tell you to go storm a government building, just don't do it. How about that? If you want to stay out of jail for 18 years, just don't do that. That's stupid to do. It's a stupid thing to do. Why would you do that? So if you don't, I don't agree with these kinds of sentences, but if you want to avoid getting in that situation, don't listen to a wealthy, powerful con man and a bunch of federal agents when they tell you to commit a serious crime. And you do not have to suffer those kinds of consequences. Like I was just talking about this today, because you get accounts like this where the End Wokeness account, one of Elon Musk's favorite accounts, and this is actually all transitioning into each other nice. All these topics that I'm going to talk about today are pretty closely linked. So you have End Wokeness here, one of Elon Musk's favorite accounts. He's been paying this account to like continue to create content. And if you're ever going to like respond to this content, screenshot it. Do not quote tweet this shit because they make money. They make money for getting outraged comments. You screenshot it and you can comment on it like that. Yes, I love the obvious con man for his great ability to con people. I think I will go to prison for him. The thing is, he would never con me, though. That's the thing. I'm part of the special in-group, you see. I won't be conned. He will just own the libs and own my political enemies, but he'll support me because I'm putting my life on the line for him. I'm putting my freedom on the line for this man. He'll support me, obviously. I would never be conned. Clearly. Well, guess what, asshole? Guess what? You got conned. So my sympathy is low for some of these people, whether it's this asshole Joe Biggs or whether it's like Ashley Babbitt. You know, I don't support police killing people, but like if you're that fucking dumb that you're going to go along with this harebrained scheme to overthrow the government and you're trying to get into a room in the Capitol building where there's men with guns out there guarding the heavy hitters in the U.S. government, and they say, hey, don't come in here, and you do it anyways, well, my sympathy is a little low at that point, because you had a number of opportunities to avoid that outcome, and you turned it down at every stage. At every stage. So my sympathy is a little low. Oops, another con. Wouldn't you know it? I just know, who could have predicted that Donald fucking Trump is not the trustworthy ally that you maybe thought he was? It's weird that you can go to jail for doing something the president said he'd be doing with you. Yeah, and I've talked about this a lot, how I think January 6th, number one, part of it, a lot of people were just acting on their own will of volition. I think it were own will and volition, which I think was very stupid, but Donald Trump was out there saying, we gotta storm the Capitol building, and they did it. So that, I think, is the simplest possible explanation for what happened. But I've talked about a lot how I happen to think that January 6th was, in a sense, a kind of honeypot to ensnare both Trump himself and his dumbest supporters, so they could empower the security state, the intelligence community, to throw some of these people in jail and try and throw Trump in jail as well. And I've admitted that I agree with that. There was how many federal informants were part of the Proud Boys or the 3%ers or any of these militias? How many federal agents were on Discord or Telegram or WhatsApp or whatever, organizing these people and organizing these things? Those questions have never been answered. Why were they able to get inside the Capitol building? How come the security was not able to stop them from getting them in? The fucking United States government, with the most militarized police across the nation in the entire world. How was that able to happen? So I think two things can be true. Yes, it was a honeypot for Trump and his dumbass supporters. Yes, the security state, the intelligence community, the deep state, whatever you want to call it, were heavily implicated in that. Also, I still don't have a ton of sympathy for these people that went along with this obvious fucking stupid plot. When federal agents tell me to commit a serious crime, I simply say no, thank you, because I'm not an idiot. So my sympathy is a little low, regardless of how implicated the deep state or the intelligence community was in promoting and supporting and funding this whole thing. Job, and first of all, they're doing this sob story about this guy, but even after begging he did this whole teary-eyed begging the judge for leniency and bringing up his kid and whatever, he immediately, upon leaving the courtroom, said Trump won and was mugging for the cameras. So that was all complete bullshit to begin with. January 6th was almost like a police conference. There were hundreds of cops from every part of the country there, from Seattle to Miami, every inch of the country. Absolutely. And that has never been addressed. That has never been addressed. Not in these endless hours-long January 6 hearings. It hasn't been addressed in this whatever has happened when it comes to this trial that's going on. It has just never been. It's been completely kind of swept under the rug, and in fact has been framed as being some kind of right-wing conspiracy theory to even bring it up, which I don't agree with. But I can agree that the cops were deeply implicated on all sides, both promoting and organizing and funding this thing, letting them into the Capitol building, and also just being in part of that crowd under their own will and volition, because they're reactionaries themselves and they are hogs themselves who did want to overthrow the government. I think on all sides of that, cops were deeply implicated, whether they're police officers in the crowd or they're in the FBI or the NSA or whatever other three-letter agencies were involved in organizing or funding this thing. All this even assumes these cops or the deep state didn't want January 6th to succeed. Well, I think one thing we have to keep in mind is that there's factions. There's not an amorphous blob that believes in one thing in either the U.S. government or in the sort of deep state. There's different factions. There's a more liberal wing and there's a more extremely reactionary wing. So I think that there are people in the security state or the intelligence community that are trying to stop these kinds of things from happening. And I think there's also people from the police state that are deeply implicated in wanting them to happen. So I think there's both. There's both people that wanted it to succeed, and there's people that were trying to stop it. But my point is, though, like, now you have accounts like End Wokeness saying Joe Biggs will spend the next 17 years behind bars for being in the Capitol for 20 minutes, non-violent. And whatever, like, we've all saw the violence of, like, we don't need to stand up for cops or support the Capitol Police or whatever, but the idea that that was non-violent is just not true. There's like, significant footage of these crowds struggling with and fighting with cops. I mean, that's not controversial. That's not a conspiracy. Like, it's on fucking video. They were caught in 4K doing this. Again, don't blame anyone but yourselves for going along with this stupid plot, which was obviously being astroturfed by these wealthy and powerful people who don't give a shit about the average asshole that was caught up in it, to say nothing of the federal agents that were involved as well. Yeah, the sentencing, he begged the judge to let him take his daughter to school. Oh, and excuse me, I wasn't talking about this guy Joe Biggs. I was talking about another Proud Boy. Self-described Sergeant of Arms for the Proud Boys, Ethan Nordian, was sentenced to 18 years in prison and 3 years of supervised release. These dumb motherfuckers. He was the one that was pleading for leniency at the end of his trial, and then after he got escorted out, yelled Trump won to all the camera people that were there. It wasn't this guy. It's kind of nuts how undermanned they were. Half expect they were meant to be destroyed. When you talk about the cops that were there, I mean, this is the thing we've been talking about since day one. We were talking about it when it was going on, as I covered January 6th, like for 6 fucking hours that day. As I was talking about, how could, like, as anyone with a brain knows, if the Black Lives Matter, for example, are often held up by these kind of types as being some kind of analogous protest movement. If Black Lives Matter had said on this date, on February 17th, we are meeting at the United States Capitol building, we plan on storming the Capitol building, all these people were on fucking Facebook and YouTube and TikTok and social media under their real names being like, yes, I plan on overthrowing the government on this day. Hello, my name is Joe Biggs, or whatever the fuck. All these people were doing this. So if there was something similar, Black Lives Matter or the climate protesters or Antifa or whatever you want to talk about, or the Women's March, let's say the Women's March that had that protest after Trump won. If they were online being like, we are going to enter the Capitol building and smash our way in and overthrow the government and hang Mike Pence, like openly saying these things, which is what these people were doing. As we all know, they would not be allowed to do that. They would not be getting into the building. They would not be getting anywhere close to the building. There would be no chance whatsoever of any of these groups actually getting through the barricades and getting into the Capitol building. Zero chance. This is the most heavily militarized police state in human history. They have the ability of stopping this, and there was not that many people there. What, like, it was a couple thousand, 10,000 maybe, generously? Maybe if you're talking about like a huge crowd, a huge like army of people, you might be able to get past some kind of barricades even with the militarized police. These was a bunch of fucking yahoos and small business owners, middle-aged men, you know, and women. So no, they would have never, ever in a million years been able to get anywhere near that building, let alone inside into like Nancy Pelosi's office, right next to these like political heavy hitters, had it been a Black Lives Matter protest or whoever else. We've all understood that from moment one. So that's always been the big discrepancy for me about why this shit was allowed to happen. So you have people like this End Wokeness account, talking about this and talking about how this, trying to raise some kind of sympathy for these people. Oh, he has a daughter. He begged the judge to let him take his daughter to school. Again, if you want to be able to take your daughter to the school, don't fall for this obvious fucking entrapment bullshit when a wealthy, powerful con man and a bunch of federal agents are telling you to commit a serious crime on their behalf. Just don't do that. And you will be able to take your daughter to school as much as you want, regardless of the fairness or the unfairness of like that kind of prison sentence. That's the main way to stay out of that situation. But as I pointed out here, these very same people, like I don't know if I don't want to look at the End Wokeness account and really look at it that much. But I talked last week about how that woman, let me find her name here. Oh, fucking Christ. Takia Young. Like, these people are so concerned about liberty. These libertarians, they're so concerned about the encroachment of the ability of agents of the state to entrap them in these kinds of harebrained schemes, throw them in jail for years and years. They're really worried about the prison conditions for these people. Takia Young, 21 years old, pregnant woman, was suspected of shoplifting liquor and was confronted by a cop in the parking lot of a grocery store or wherever, and of course accelerated toward the cop, which is what always fucking happens, which justifies lethal force.
This is some guy, Rob Russo, some leftist based in Canada. I was turned on to this sick individual, and I found this.
Hello, Lucid. Thank you so much for the raid, Lucid. Thank you, Lucid. I really appreciate it. How was your stream today? Welcome, Raiders. Hello. They're in. Lucid Raiders, if you're not already following me, very close to 9K followers. So one thing that you can do, if you want to help out this stream, and Lucid agrees with this, Lucid agrees with everything that I'm saying right now, one thing that you can do to support this stream is just to hit the follow button. It costs nothing at all. It costs nothing at all. And look at me. Am I not the kind of person that you'd want to follow on here? Huh? Look at this guy. That would be very helpful if you could just smash the old follow button. Help me move towards 9K followers. And the most important thing too is just to not pay any attention to this. This is completely out of context. That's right. And you can take this to the bank, but I, Rob Rousseau, love getting DP'd. That was completely out of context, so I wouldn't worry too much about that. Follower of many months here. Never disappointed. Really love clicking that button. Well, thank you, Nee. Thank you for that. I'm glad to hear that. So don't pay any attention to that. Anyway, I was just wanted to do a little segment about this. We talked a little bit about like January 6th and the fact that like these accounts on X.com, the Everything app, these accounts on X.com, like End Wokeness, one of Elon Musk's favorite accounts, are now crying about these like January 6th rioters that are getting these huge prison sentences. I don't want to go in and rehash everything that I was just saying. I was kind of talking about January 6th and, you know, these big prison sentences that are being handed down the way that I have suspicions that these intelligence communities, the deep state or whatever, was quite implicated in this on both sides. And the main way, I'll just sum up my position by saying the main way that I think if you want to avoid getting a 17-year prison sentence and not being able to take your daughter to school, etc., like End Wokeness is pointing out, Joe Biggs is going through, the main thing that you want to do is when a notorious con artist and grifter, very wealthy, powerful person tells you to commit a serious crime and a bunch of federal agents are involved in like telling you to commit a serious crime and they're going to help you out, just don't do it. Just say, no, thank you. No, thank you. And that's the main, then you can avoid any of these kind of big consequences. And you will not be sentenced to prison for 17 years. But I was just talking about how these very accounts, such as the End Wokeness account, have spent literally the last week commenting on this case of Takia Young, who was just executed in a parking lot after she was suspected of stealing liquor and was just shot by this I don't want to say off-duty cop, but a cop that was there for another reason, after she accelerated her car and his life was threatened, of course. And it's really incredible, the cognitive dissonance from these people that are like, you know, whether it's Ashley Babbitt, whether it's any of these January 6 people, talking about the injustice of that. The injustice that they're going through. He only tried to overthrow the United States government. It really gets summed up. Do you remember that clip from January 6, folks? Where the lady is like, they pepper sprayed me. Do you remember this? They pepper sprayed me. And they're like, wow, what did they pepper spray you for? What happened? And she was like, we're trying to overthrow the government. And they got into the building. They pepper sprayed me. It's like, that's basically the mentality. And she's giving her name on video, giving her full name on video, openly acknowledged that she was part of this serious crime. Whether you like it or not, it's a serious crime to break into the U.S. Capitol building with the intention to overthrow an election result that you don't like on behalf of the former host of The Apprentice. That's unfortunately for you, that's a serious crime. But that's the kind of attitude. And these same people, literally the very same people that are talking now, but they've all discovered the injustice of the criminal justice system in the United States. And they're very passionate about this. The same people think that it's totally actually okay for armed agents of the state, these libertarian types, think that armed agents of the state, when they execute a 21-year-old pregnant woman in a parking lot after she's been accused, not proven, not judged in a case, but has been accused of stealing liquor. They think when armed agents of the state shoot this woman in the middle of in the parking lot after their lives were threatened because she didn't immediately comply with the complaints that are being screamed at her by this gun-wielding fucking lunatic who obviously had murderous intent. Because when you're being threatened with a weapon and shouted at, you just act totally calmly and rationally, right? And of course, you don't have reason to feel like your life was threatened, even though you're literally murdered just a few moments later. Because you don't immediately comply with these directions. And listen, if you're a cop as well, and someone's accused of shoplifting, and they're in their car, do you just execute the person on the street? You see their car. You see their license plate number. If it's really that fucking serious, you can just let them drive away, not endanger their life or the lives of everyone around you in the community. And you can simply go to their home later and speak to them and try to find out what happened. This is the fucking weird cop mentality as well, right? Oh, it's you're being accused of shoplifting, so let's have a high-speed chase where we run over pedestrians, smash public property, kill people, kill the person that was responsible, kill whoever, rather than just simply use our cop abilities to just go to their home later and find out what happened, or maybe take a look at the security footage if there's really a serious crime that's been going on here. She moved her giant murder wagon and it went 1 miles per hour. That's right. Yeah, didn't want to bother with a home visit because they'd already hit their shot dog quota. Exactly. So these same people, though, as we'll see in Nina Turner's replies, not the punishment for shoplifting. Apparently there was a community note. There are plenty of real black heroes and even martyrs. Why this? Why not share the footage? Of course, Andy No is sharing the real footage. And then, of course, the community note on Nazi-infestedx.com, the Everything app. Takia Young was not shot for shoplifting. Body camera footage shows that she tried to run over a police officer with her car and was fatally shot as a result. Which the community note is not even there anymore. So this person says, yes, it is. She tried to run over a cop. If I tried to run over a cop, no one would mourn for me. That's because I'm European American. You've deemed my life less valuable. That is racism. Good riddance, says chill rich dude. 100% her fault. She placed the value of her life, her unborn babies, and the police at the cost of a few bottles of alcohol. The punishment for shoplifting was not death. The repercussion for trying to run over a cop was getting shot. And as Austin Ox is pointing out here, reading the community note, you'd think she was running cops down at full speed, when in the footage the cop walks in front of her car to stop her from pulling out of the parking lot, and as she starts moving at about 2 miles per hour, he point blank executes her through the windshield. So again, even if this was true, that she tried to run over some police officer, which is obviously false, still no reason that had to happen. As I said, if someone's suspected of shoplifting and you see them driving away and you're a fucking cop, you see your license plate, there are things you can do to later track down the person and non-violently try to solve this caper, this mysterious caper of the missing bottles of alcohol. Putting yourself in harm's way and then using that to justify lethal force of, again, a 21-year-old pregnant woman is fucking grotesque. And these libertarians who are so concerned about the Dark Brandon's agenda and the New World Order and 15-minute cities and agents of the state telling them what to wear and what to say and what to think, they think that it is A-okay. It is totally A-okay for these testosterone-fueled fucking freaks with murderous, violent intent to just act as judge, jury, and executioner in the street to a 20-year-old woman who is suspected of shoplifting because their life was in danger. Again, deliberately putting themselves in that situation to justify the use of force. The cognitive dissonance from these people is truly fucking insane to me. And that brings me back to the end wokeness thing. These very same people who, when it comes to these January 6th rioters, whether it's this fucking guy or whether it's Ashley Babbitt who got shot at the Capitol building while trying to force her way into a room while men with guns were sitting there going like, do not do what you're doing. Which you can see on the footage as well. They hold these people up as martyrs, or that fucking guy a few weeks ago. That old guy a few weeks ago, the guy who has all the Facebook posts like, I hope the FBI comes to arrest me, and showing pictures of himself with all his guns and stuff. If the FBI comes to get me, I'm going to shoot him. If Joe Biden comes around my place, I'm going to go and shoot him. On using his full name on Facebook, who lo and behold gets fucking airholed by the FBI when they show up at his house, and they hold him up as being some kind of martyr. Whether it's Joe Biggs or that clown or Ashley Babbitt or whoever, they hold them up as these martyrs, and they simultaneously think that it's okay for cops to just shoot a woman for suspected theft of alcohol, to say nothing of the people that are just shot like fucking animals in the street in the United States every day, which, as we know, the cops are killing more people today than they were prior to the George Floyd protests, which was the largest mass protest movement in modern American history, explicitly about police violence and corruption and funding of these police departments and systemic racism. There's more cops shooting people today than there were prior to that. And these people think that's totally fine, except when, one of their fucking loser friends tries to force their way into a government building, when they openly make death threats against political figures and then invite the FBI to come to their homes where they're heavily armed, or whether it's clowns like this who stupidly, foolishly went along with this incredibly dumbass, harebrained scheme to overthrow the results of the 2020 United States presidential election. And these are the martyrs that they hold up when they talk about the horrors and the evils of the criminal justice system. Like, these people are truly unbelievable to me. It's really incredible. Yeah, they don't actually believe in small government. They just want to wield the state apparatus to hurt their targets. Yeah. And she was warned no less than 4 times, and that's it. And I don't support the cops shooting people. But as I've said, my sympathy runs pretty low. When you're part of some stupid harebrained scheme to overthrow the United States government, you get numerous opportunities to avoid putting yourself in that situation, which you ignore at every turn, and then you end up having consequences for it. I'm sorry, but my sympathy is a little low. I don't know if these dumbasses that went along with the January 6th stuff, which was, again, obviously being promoted by Donald Trump and like all these federal agencies. I don't know if you deserve to be put in jail for 17 years for that, but I also don't have a huge amount of sympathy for you because you were a moron for going along with that thing in the first place. Tell us how you really feel. Hildy, I had 2 big iced coffees before I... Can you tell? Can you tell that I had 2 big iced coffees before I got started talking today? This is the first real episode of TRRS in quite some time, and I'm really like, I'm plunging right in there. That's why it's so extra creepy and wrong that so many cops adore the Punisher hero and use his skull like that, because they do consider themselves judge, jury, and executioner. And I still remember that cowardly cop at Uvalde school shooting that just stood there doing nothing to save the kids and looking at his phone, which had the Punisher skull as background, and the news footage and the disclaimer, sounds of screaming children have been removed. It's really... We talk sometimes about like Verhoeven and how totally like almost comical the satire is in Verhoeven's like 80s science fiction films about what the America of today is going to look like, and how it doesn't come anywhere near approaching the actual ridiculousness of some of it, you know? Like I was, just as another example, I was looking at this today too. This totally reminded me of Verhoeven. Shit. It's so funny. Mira says it's so funny that so many people accidentally bring their guns through security at Atlanta airport. They have to have these holographic gun signs everywhere. Which, of course, reminded me of this shot from Total Recall. No, that's from Total Recall. When I talk about ACAB, one common point I'll get from other Canadians is that the cops here aren't as bad. How do I explain the system? Nature of state violence. I mean, it's just, you just need to focus on what Indigenous people go through. The way that, you know, the RCMP was formed as a way to control and dominate and destroy Indigenous people and Indigenous culture, and how none of that has gone away. That's a central plank of the Canada's entire like purpose for existing. Has been the murder and genocide of Indigenous peoples. It was going on hundreds of years ago. It was going on through the residential school system, which ended in the late 90s. It's still going on today in the foster care system, which is just really like a continuation of the kind of residential school policies where there's Indigenous kids still dying to this day as part of our foster care system, like right now. Things like Starlight Tours and the role in that. The role that the police play in those kinds of horrors. The fact that in our prisons, which are disproportionately filled with Indigenous people. I think often of Eshia Hudson. Like, while we're talking about, the police violence in America, police violence in Canada, Here's a direct analogy between what happened to Takia Young, suspected shoplifting of liquor, executed by police in the parking lot, and here's Eshia Hudson in Manitoba just a few years ago, who was killed by the police after being suspected of shoplifting liquor. It was literally the exact same thing. So you might be able to talk about police in Canada and maybe the violence is because there's just less people. Perhaps there's less instances. You have 300 million Americans and you have 30-something million Canadians. So there's maybe less public instances of these kinds of things, but it's not that they don't happen. It happens every single day. No charges. Like, do we really think there's that much of a difference in these two countries? No charges for Winnipeg officer who shot 16-year-old girl after police chase. The father of an Indigenous teen killed by Winnipeg police officer last April is criticizing a police watchdog report. Wouldn't you know it? The police watchdog report determined that the police did nothing wrong. Crazy. Crazy. The Independent Investigation Unit of Manitoba released a report Thursday on its probe into the April 8th, 2020 death of 16-year-old Eshia Hudson. 16 years old. 16-year-old girl. The girl was shot and killed following a pursuit in which police say she drove a vehicle involved in a liquor store robbery in Winnipeg's Sage Creek neighborhood earlier that day. During its investigation, the IIU talked with 14 civilian witnesses, including 3 of the 4 passengers in the vehicle, in addition to reviewing forensic evidence and audio recordings of a 911 call and police radio. Also talked with several police officers. The officer directly involved in the shooting declined to be interviewed, which didn't seem to hurt his case at all. The report includes an account from a witness who recorded cell phone video of part of the incident at the intersection of Lagimodiere Boulevard and Fermor Avenue. He described seeing a vehicle which was being pursued by police hit another vehicle. Then as the first vehicle, which was surrounded by police officers, tried to reverse, he heard the sound of gunshots. So very similar thing. Very similar case. Oh, she tried to reverse into me. I was scared. My life was endangered. I had to summarily execute this teenage girl who was unarmed. So that's what I would say to anyone that tries to make this claim that Canada's police are better in any way. I mean, that's just not true. I live in Montreal. It's one of the most notorious police departments in North America. There's people that are shot by the police in my neighborhood, like, every year. Let's look at. I can look at a local example. No charges in police shooting of black man in NDG, Crown declares. Police said Sheffield Matthews came toward them with the knife, ignoring calls to drop it until he was shot 3 times. So that would be my answer to ask these questions. Oh, the policing situation, the racism is not so bad in Canada. No, it is as bad. To say nothing of the Indigenous women that mysteriously get thrown off balconies. Not exclusively women, but Indigenous women are a really disproportionate victims of police violence and state violence, which has led to the whole creation of the report on missing and murdered Indigenous women and girls, which cops are deeply implicated in, not just not investigating these things, but perpetrating the crimes themselves. If only they had a plethora of tools to halt someone without killing them. Yeah, well, and as I was talking about with these cases, like, if you're a fucking police officer and someone's being accused of shoplifting, you see them getting away in a car, there's ways to non-violently handle that situation. It endangers everybody, including the cops, if you actually care about that. It endangers everybody when they engage in these high-speed pursuits of people that are being accused of these kinds of like low-level crimes like shoplifting. If you see the person get away, you see what their license plate is, you can find out what their identity is and where they live, and there's a way to go and talk to them and get to the bottom of that caper. If you really, really want to do that. Escalating these things into violence or into these situations where then you can justify violence. Because, yeah, they chase her. This is what happened in this case. This is what happened in this case. They chase her after she gets this accused of stealing liquor. They chase her until she gets in an accident. She tries to reverse out of the crash that she just got into, and then that justifies executing her, in which there's no consequences or charges for it. You know, there are ways to non-violently get to the bottom of these kinds of extremely low-level crimes. Escalating them into these violent incidents are 100% the responsibility of the police. Or, I'm sorry, if you're a fucking multiple grown men and you're armed with deadly weapons and there's a man with a knife, there's no excuse to just execute that person. No matter how... if you're that scared for your life, then don't become a police officer. As I've said before. If you're that fucking worried about what's going to happen to you, and this is what they put into people's heads when they become cops, this kind of cop mentality. Just get home at the end of the day. That's all that matters. That's all that matters is you get home at the end of the day. If you're that fucking terrified for your life, then don't become a police officer. As we've talked about many times, there are already many more dangerous jobs, and I don't think being a police officer ranks in the top 10 in terms of dangerous jobs in our society. But if you're that fucking scared, then become a teacher. Do something else. Get a real job. Like a Twitch streamer, like me. I'm actually contributing something to society. Unlike police officers. McDonald's is always hiring. Exactly. You can get a job at Starbucks, McDonald's. Like, if you join some of these workers that are working at these places, you might even get a better wage because they're actually fighting for a better wage for these very hard jobs. Which, if you work at McDonald's or Starbucks, you're contributing way more to society than cops are. Yeah, don't become a teacher. Scratch that part. Scratch that part. Don't become a teacher. But that's it. I mean, these situations are escalated into violence. And when we talk about like the whole the January 6th thing, the Black Lives Matter protests, the George Floyd protests, these same reactionaries will also be like, these people were burning down half the city and they were rioting and doing this and that, ignoring the fact that in these situations as well, time after time, we all witness this night after night. Night after night, though, these like peaceful protests and vigils were every single time escalated to violent riots by heavily militarized armored cops showing up and escalating it into that situation and creating those exact situations. Right? The police themselves are escalating all these situations into violent consequences very intentionally. Here's Chinese police realizing a woman wielding 2 meat cleavers is just having a bad day, and instead of brutally gunning her down, they arrest her using shields and poles. How fucking hard is it if you're such a big tough guy? If you're such a big tough guy that you're going to be a police officer, how fucking hard is it? Is it to like disarm someone with a knife? You know? How hard is it? And in this case, the person was actually armed with something. In the case of Aisha Hudson, or in the case of Takia Young, they're not even armed. They're not even armed. They're just driving a car. And cops are putting themselves in harm's way in order to justify using legal force against them. Lethal force. Legal and lethal. And then you have accounts like End Wokeness and the people that are responding to me under my very own tweet right here, saying like, yep, no problem. You know, this is the amazing thing about Elon Musk's X.com. And that was in the evil police state, exactly. That's right. How many of these ghouls spent the last week arguing that a pregnant woman being shot by a cop for suspected shoplifting was totally justified? And wouldn't you know it, they're right here. I missed the Leviticus says I missed the part where January 6ers were driving cars into officers. She was barely driving. Was the cop supposed to allow her to keep driving, potentially accelerating and running him over, just after a drunk lady actually did run over an officer and fled the scene? So right under my own tweet, these very people are like, yeah, no, actually, that's totally okay. That's fine. It's fine for armed agents of the state to be shooting pregnant women in the street. 21-year-old pregnant women, unarmed. Who, again, didn't need to be there. Did not need to be there. If you see someone being suspected of shoplifting, just let him go. And you can find him later, and you can get to the bottom of what happened without murdering anybody. Can't stop someone from running over? Yeah, it sounds like a skill issue to me. These people are all in my mentions now. The very mentions. The very people. The very same people. Like Leviticus, Catholic, America First. These are the people that are being empowered on X.com. The new blue checks. Yeah, did you miss the part where that dumbass woman kept mindlessly climbing over the barricade into the hallway where armed men were screaming at her to stop? Exactly. That's the truly amazing thing. It's truly amazing. And they're showing these other things like flashback, May 29th, insurrection. Leftist rioters surrounded the White House and tried tearing apart the protective barrier so they could storm the building. But you'll notice, though, that they did not storm the building. Why is that? Well, it seems like they were able to muster the security forces to prevent that from happening. And also, if you look into like the Black Lives Matter protests and any rioting that did happen, people got sent to jail for it. The idea that this was just totally like allowed to happen and everyone was just let to go, people were sent to jail. People who threw Molotovs into cop cars or overturned cop cars or got like, there's multiple people that were involved in these George Floyd protests that did indeed get sent to jail. And of course there was this fucking rampant orgy of police violence every night, which we saw dozens and dozens of instances of. So not only did people get the shit beat out of them by the police in this case, did they have their lives ruined by these kinds of charges. And then these people are trying to suggest that like this was just allowed to happen and there was no consequences for anyone. That's not true whatsoever. And organizers were murdered extrajudicially, probably by cops. People were snatched off the street in unmarked vehicles. We literally have protest leaders from both the George Floyd protest and going all the way back to Ferguson that have been killed by like dozens of people at this point in mysterious circumstances. And these people are still trying to paint themselves as the victims and suggesting that that was just totally allowed to happen completely without consequence, which is just completely untethered from reality. Shot for attempted vehicular homicide from Ruby Doggy. No, they shot themselves in the back of the head and burned their own remains. I mean, that's just tying together everything that we're talking about. You're seeing how like completely hollow this right-wing populism is, whether it's about class consciousness or whether it's about state violence. They're not our fucking allies, these people. Because they might start talking about the criminal justice system because one of their own dumbass supporters got shot by the police or has some kind of consequences for being involved in a violent riot and a harebrained scheme to overthrow the government. We don't need to tail these reactionary beliefs, whether it's the January 6th people, the trucker convoy people, the Oliver Anthony people, you know? It's just completely foolish to even think that you can do that. My real politic, yeah. All these people are just like, yeah, the end wokeness account and the Joe Biggs of the world and these types. They're just one conversation away from becoming Marxists. We simply need to engage with these people and show how much credentials we have and how serious we are by throwing gay and lesbian and queer and trans people under the fucking bus and totally embracing like this kind of like anti-woke language, giving up on any kind of like social or racial justice, and then we'll have one conversation with these people and they're going to become Marxists. Like, how stupid do you have to be to believe that? We'll throw indigenous people under the bus as well. We'll forget the whole idea of, let's just forget about the whole idea of settler colonialism. Let's forget that we're a genocidal settler colonialist society, and we'll wrap ourselves in the symbols of nationalism. The Canadian flag, the US flag, that has been used to justify violent genocide against indigenous people here, against people in Southeast Asia, against people in Latin America, Africa, and all over the world. Let's wrap ourselves in these symbols of nationalism, and then we're going to be able to turn these people into Marxists. Like, are you fucking kidding me? I don't know if it's just stupid. You have to be incredibly arrogant. It's like a white leftist too. I mean, it's both. It is very arrogant and chauvinistic. I mean, there's no denying that. But for anyone that's like not on anyone's payroll, that's not taking LaRouche money or whatever money from whoever, that genuinely believe this stuff, I mean, that is just stupid. It is arrogant and chauvinistic, but it's fucking stupid too. At least if you're getting paid for it, I understand on that front. If you've just been convinced by these cynical people to believe in this, then you're a dumbass. So folks, going on 2 hours into the stream, just like to remind people that I've really been on one. I got on one very early. Again, where TRRS is back. It's back on the normal schedule. I mentioned trying to get started a little bit early, a little bit earlier from now on to make sure I get enough time to talk about everything I need to talk about. This show, though, does not take LaRouche money. It does not take money from any foreign government, any think tanks that I'm aware of anyways. You know, who knows who's behind some of these anonymous gift subs that come across. This show is not funded by anyone, though, except the viewers. That's you. So, if you can, folks, subscribe to TRRS. Join the community. Support the content that I create here on twitch.tv. The only way this show stays on the air is through the very, very generous support of the community members. And I should mention as well, if you're a new viewer, if you just showed up in one of the raids today, if you're not familiar with this show, if you're not really part of the community, first-time subs right now are discounted because it's September. It is September, so I believe you're going to have to check the numbers on this. I believe, though, it is 25% off brand new subs, and that also applies to anyone that is upgrading their Tier 1 sub to a Tier 2 or Tier 3, or upgrading to
use the computer to mark up the size of the account.
3-month or 6-month.
We are still waiting on the Xi Jinping money. Let's get a hype train for the Montreal Menace ravishing Rib Rude. Come on, chat.
Thank you very much,
You can count on
Brian.
me. You're going to have good old Rob to talk you through all this.
I watched 12 hours of Rob over the weekend while playing Mass Effect.
Plunger Man, thank you very much for the 23-month resub at Tier 2. So close to that 24-month golden sub badge. So close you can almost taste it. Thank you, Plunger Man. There was so much Rob streaming this weekend. The streamathon, the subathon. The main thing I remember about the George Floyd protests politically is the encapsulation of liberal thought in Don Lemon wondering why celebs aren't saying anything. Then there's that side of the coin, or the other side of that coin is like Nancy Pelosi wearing kente cloth and kneeling.
You can count on me. You're going to have good old Rob to talk you through all this.
For a photo op. Thank you very much, Brian, for the gifted sub. Thank you for that. So do I have any other takers here? Do we have any other takers? I'm 2 hours into the stream. I've been ranting and raving already for the last like 90 minutes or so. I got all caffeinated up and I've been ranting and raving. Do any other generous chatters want to support this community? Help me make the little number go up.
You can count on me. You're going to have good old Rob to talk you through all this.
Thank you, Diego, for the gifted sub and for all the support. Thank you, Diego. I really appreciate it. Give Rob some slubs. My man needs a haircut. I know I do need a haircut, but like I said, I'm kind of starting to be into the disheveled look. You know, I'm starting to kind of be into it. Maybe I do need a cut. Maybe I need it shaped a little bit.
Member of the Friendship Triangle.
Sunny Sola. Oh my goodness! Thank you for these 7 gifted subs. Thank you so much, Sunny Sola. Really, really appreciate that. That's what I'm talking about. He's 40. He's given up. I wouldn't say I've given up. You know, there's a lot of things that I'm maybe a little bit. I don't know. Maybe a little bit. Maybe it needs to have some kind of a shape.
We simply use the computer to mark up the size of the account.
Transient Rob.
Like I said, I do think I'm starting to look like the Marxist revolutionary type. When I'm a little too clean cut, it hits a little bit different. Thank you, Brian, for another 300 friend coin. I really appreciate the support, Brian. Seriously, thank you. Keep the hair. The disheveled look suits you, and with all that hair, you look younger than 40. Thank you, Diego. Flattery will get you everywhere, Diego. You could grow the Che beard if you wanted. The thing is, I can't, though. I can't. Part of getting older.
Use the computer to mark up the size of the account.
Thank you, Sasha, for the 100 friend coin. Part of getting older is realizing like your limitations, and if I tried to grow a beard, it just would not happen. I got some stuff down here. I could I would look more like a Lenin or even, dare I say, a Trotsky if I grew this part out. But here, though, nothing. I got a few straggler hairs there, but nothing that even being extremely generous would qualify as being an actual beard. The thing is, mine is not only is weak on the cheeks, it's just barely even present. It's not weak. It's like, it's non-existent. So this is going to have to do it. And, you know, there's been other famous socialist revolutionary figures that had big bushy mustaches as well. You know, we don't need to name names, but I like to think maybe there's a little bit of Parenti. I got the glasses and the mustache. So I feel like that's kind of part of my thing, you know? Baby face down to my neck. That's right. I'm a true neck beard. That's right. So, folks, we do have a hype train going. We're 51% of the way through level 3 of this hype train. If anyone else wants to subscribe to TRRS, we will get past this shilling segment, then I got plenty more to talk about. And I started a little bit earlier, so I gave myself enough time to get into everything that I need to do. So, does anyone else want to support this channel? We'll get through this little segment. I'll get back. I want to talk about like Elon Musk and the ADL and anti-Semitism and this kind of stuff, which is, I think, it's related to everything that we've been talking about, giving the what we're seeing in terms of commentary on X.com, the Everything app. But I got a whole other rant to go on about that. I just need to get through this little segment. If you can't afford to support this program, or, you know, which is something I completely understand, just bear with me. We're going to be talking about more important discourse very soon. But as you know, here on Twitch, I do have to make the little number go up every single day. So if you'll just indulge me for a few moments while I do that, we will get back to the serious discussion in just a little bit. We got 2.5 minutes, folks. We got 2.5 minutes. Are there any other chatters that want to step to the plate and support TRRS? We're halfway to the goal, which is fantastic. Halfway to the goal. And you know what? Now that I realize it, I do owe Chad a song. I do owe Chad a song. As I mentioned, when I get to 50 subs, that does trigger the karaoke sub goal. On Saturday, I did perform the classic Jimmy Buffett song, the fallen legend, Jimmy Buffett, Margaritaville. And I did also on Sunday evening get to 50 subs as well, but it was a little late. I didn't do the song, so I do owe Chad a song, which will be the Kim Carnes 1980s hit, Betty Davis Eyes.
You can count on me. You're going to have good old Rob to talk you through all this.
So I do owe Chad a song. I won't forget. I'm a man of my word. Part Ian, thanks for the gifted sub. Thank you, Part Ian. I really appreciate that.
We simply use the computer to mark up the size of the account.
Thank you very much, Sasha, for another 100 friend coin. We're getting the Rob song tonight. We are. We absolutely are. My father was a drinker and a fiend. One night, he goes off crazier than usual. Mom grabs a kitchen knife to defend herself. He doesn't like that. Not one bit. He comes at me with the knife, laughing as he does it. I don't know the entire monologue. I don't know the entire thing. I gotta work on that, I guess. And he looks at me and he says, "Why so serious?" I actually really love that acting thing that Heath Ledger does in that moment, because we know that he's like bullshitting his backstory anyways, but he's talking about that moment and he like rolls his eyes a little bit like he's still frustrated by it. It's such a great little touch. He looks at me and he says, "Why so serious?" I always like to Rob changes the origin story of the knife Rob emoji every time he tells it. That's right. The master of lies. Let's put a smile on that face. You like that, Marty? I think I'm pretty good at that one. I can do a pretty decent Ledger Joker. I think I'm all right. Well, thanks everyone for supporting the stream. I will just take a brief moment just to like go to the bathroom. Like I said, I was loaded up on caffeine here. I'm loaded up on iced coffees. So I'm just going to take a brief 5 minutes to go to the bathroom. I'll come back. We'll talk some more. I got plenty more to talk about. We'll try to make the number go up a little bit more. So don't go anywhere, okay? Don't go anywhere. Thanks for bearing with me for a few moments. I can't just
We simply
talk
use
and
the
rant and
computer
rave
to
the whole
mark up
time.
the size of the account.
Down with the bat. Honor to the revolutionary Bane thought.
Thank you, Dimitri. It's so true that, like, Bane is one of those characters that's making some very good points and then has to be, like, do something super evil to be like, no, don't worry, he is the bad guy. He is the bad guy, even though he's very clearly correct. It's the similar comic book villain thing to, like, Killmonger and a lot of these other guys. They have to make sure they do something totally over the top evil just to make sure that we know not to cheer for them. Yeah, it's pretty much every villain. That's right, Hassan. I still haven't seen Oppenheimer, unfortunately. I really wanted to see it in IMAX. I don't know if I'm going to get the chance. I know it'll come to streaming pretty soon, so I am really looking forward to seeing it. In fact, we probably should do an Oppenheimer movie night, shouldn't we? It's going to be out on streaming pretty soon. It's leaving IMAX soon. Maybe I'll try and find time. It's hard to find time in the evenings for me sometimes. Okay, so don't go anywhere, all right? I'm just going to go and take a brief little break. I'll come back in a moment and we'll talk some more. Oh God, look at this. Look at this shit. This video seems so painful. Appeasers. With Glenn Greenwald, Chomsky, and Jeffrey Sachs, how Putin fooled the Western left. Putin tricked us into not supporting an obvious NATO proxy war. Putin, we only did that because of Putin tricking us. Classic Putin. Thank you, YouTube algorithm, for showing me this content. So don't go anywhere, folks, okay? I'll be right back. Take a little break. I'll come back in a minute. Time to do some whippets. Hello. Hello, too. I'm back. I got these popsicles, and my son left, he had one, and he left them lying on the counter for like 45 minutes, so they got all melty and deformed. So I have this weird deformed popsicle. It still works, though. And orange is a superior popsicle flavor, it's true. To enjoy my popsicle, and then we'll get back more into some serious discourse. So, should I do the song now? Just immediately throwing my son under the bus, of course. Should I do the song now? In the interlude. I guess that would be a good time to do it, right? While eating a popsicle. One thing I didn't do is I didn't check to see if I could find shit. Oh. Okay. We're going to do it. I've said, folks, when I get to 50 subs in a day, I have a 35 sub goal. When I get to 50, I'll sing you a little song, which I think is a fair deal. You know, I'm out here trying to entertain and engage people. If I get to 50 subs, I'll sing a little song. On Sunday night, I did get to 50 subs. It was a little late. I didn't do the song. I'm a man of my word, as I mentioned earlier in the Joker voice. I'm a man of my word, so I'm not going to not deliver that. So before we move on to anything serious here, I am going to now perform the song Betty Davis Eyes by Kim Carnes, which was actually a song that is it's a cover. I didn't realize this. It's not an original song. There's an earlier version of Betty Davis Eyes that when they were making that Kim Carnes album, they did a new version of it, which it's crazy because it's so iconic, the synth intro and everything. Kim Carnes' version is really the definitive version, but there's a previous version of it from like 10 years previous to that, which is bad, actually. It's kind of like a country western pop thing. It's not good. Hopefully this one won't get censored by the thought police at twitch.tv. They muted my Jimmy Buffett cover, so hopefully this one will survive as well. Here we go. I sing this in the lower register. If I try to do it too high, it's not going to work. Here we go. What the fuck is that? Jesus. Her hair is hollow gold, her lips sweet surprise, her hands are never cold. She got Betty Davis eyes, she'll turn her music on you. You won't have to think twice. She's pure as New York snow. She got Betty Davis eyes. And she'll tease you, she'll unease you, all the better just to please you. She's precocious, and she knows just what it takes to make a pro blush. She got Greta Garbo, standoff size. She's got Betty Davis eyes. She'll let you take her home. It whets her appetite. She'll lay you on her throne. She got Betty Davis eyes. She'll take a tumble on you. roll you like you were dice until you come up blue. She's got Betty Davis eyes. She'll expose you when she snows you off your feet with the crumbs she throws you. She's precocious, and she knows just what it takes to make a pro blush. All the boys think she's a spy. She's got Betty Davis eyes. And she'll tease you, she'll unease you, all the better just to please you. She's precocious, and she knows just what it takes to make a pro blush. All the boys think she's a spy. She's got Betty Davis eyes. Let's clap it up, chat. She'll tease you. She'll unease you just to please you. She's got Betty Davis eyes. She'll expose you when she snows you. She knows ya. She's got Betty Davis eyes. All right. There we go. There we go. Have I been practicing this? I sing it in the car often, if that counts as practicing. It's a song that I do love to sing. I should do karaoke sometime, and that would be definitely a prime subject for a karaoke edition. Like I said, when I go down the octave, it's right in my register. If you're trying to do it where she sings it, and it's really an incredible vocal performance, honestly. Kim Carnes, she has that gravelly voice, but she's doing this very high register. Fantastic vocal performance, really an iconic song. And one of the best synth intros like ever. That karaoke version of the synth intro did not do it justice at all. It's one of the most iconic synth sounds they've ever achieved, really, in pop music. While eating a popsicle as well. Again, folks, you got rants about the police. You got analysis of these burgeoning red-brown alliances. You got songs. You got live popsicle eatings. This is the kind of content that you can only get here. There's a lot of Twitch streams out there, and YouTube streams, and all kinds, Kick, all kinds of different streams out there. Millions. An unbridled defense of toxic CM Punk. That's right. That's absolutely right. That's the only place you can get this kind of content, folks. That's why I ask for a small donation of $5 per month or more if people can afford it. That's why, you know, because I put in the work. I put in the work to create a different kind of environment, a different kind of content on here. Jay, I think you've been lulled. I think you've been lulled into supporting some toxic. You'd call CM Punk toxic. I think you've been lulled into supporting the true toxic people in that context, which is the Young Bucks, predominantly the EVPs of AEW. They chased Cody Rhodes out. They've chased away now their two biggest stars. Unquestionably, their two biggest stars, Punk and Cody Rhodes, who should be mainstay AEW main eventers. They've now both been driven out through this very passive-aggressive, oh, we're just good Christian boys, working the dirt sheets and talking to all these sympathetic wrestling journalists, creating this narrative about Punk, who just doesn't tolerate that kind of shit. You might not like it. I might not like it sometimes, but he doesn't tolerate this kind of bullshit. What is his own words? I'm old, I'm tired, I work with fucking children. It's true. He's being undermined at every level by the people that it's their company. He's their biggest merch mover, their biggest pay-per-view needle mover, you know? And he's now been framed as being like anti-worker rights because Tony Khan stopped booking his fucking former best friend rather than like appeasing that guy and not signing a huge, massive star. He's being talked about in the media like he's this anti-worker type. And then he shows up to All In, London, biggest pay-per-view ever. And what does he see? He's there in gorilla position. He's there in gorilla position, ready for his match to open up All In at Wembley. And what does he see? He sees disrespectful jobber Jack Perry looking right into the camera and referencing this like behind the scenes thing that was direct reference to him. This thing about the glass, which I guess like AEW officials had to get Punk to talk to this guy about not using real glass. He goes and shoots on him looking right into the camera. And then he goes backstage and like Punk, yeah, he's not going to tolerate that shit. He's not going to tolerate being pushed around by fucking Jungle Boy. And I get it. And listen, Jay, like, we're talking about pro wrestling here. You don't think in other pro wrestling locker rooms there's been backstage altercations? He puts Jack Perry in a front face lock because they get in a little scuffle because Perry obviously tried to provoke him intentionally. Like, the idea that Tony Khan didn't sit down with Punk and the Elite. You attacked his boss. Jay, why are you defending Tony Khan? He's a billionaire. Why are you defending Tony Khan? It's cool to attack your billionaire boss and to not let your billionaire boss get away with all this kind of bullshit. That's cool. I like that. I like that CM Punk attacked his boss. I think there should be more of that. And James, you can talk about botches in the ring or whatever, or whether he's lost a step or whether he's like his wrestling ability. That doesn't matter though. He's the number one merch mover. He's the number one draw in the company. And he's now, along with Cody Rhodes, both of them got chased out by this kind of toxic, childish, hiring all your friends, basically big grown-up backyard wrestling thing that these EVPs are doing there. Well, and also, Jay, like you say, sure, it's cool, but you can't be surprised when you get fired. This whole thing about like attacking Tony Khan, we don't really know what the result. Like we heard, there's a lot of legal language that's being thrown around to justify him being fired. Tony Khan saying like, "Oh, I feared for my life. He lunged at me." Are we sure that he didn't just like point his finger and yell at him and was like rude and mean to him? This whole thing, he attacked his boss. I don't know if I buy that either. I don't know if I buy that either, personally. And I'm not trying to call you out, Jay. You know, you're allowed to not like these things, but this is why I take this viewpoint, okay? Well, if they have video of it, I'd be interested to see this video. I actually would like to see it. I would like to see Punk choking out Jack Perry before his match at Wembley Stadium. I think that would be actually quite entertaining. And if he did lunge at Tony Khan, I would like to see this lunging and this like life-threatening situation that apparently happened. I'd be very curious to see exactly what was going on with that. That's what I mean, though. Regardless of whether you like the guy, whether you like his wrestling ability or what he brings to the table, undisputed that he was the top star in the company. along with Cody Rhodes. Both of them now have had to leave because of this kind of environment.
You're going to have good old Rob to talk you through all this.
Rob, it has been a few weeks since I've been around. I did not leave you, do not fret. Power of the friendship triangle. One love. Slub to rib.
Dr. Maggot, thank you very much for 20 months of Tier 1. To be honest, I was starting to wonder about where you were. And I was going to start sending out feelers to track you down because, as we know, you're not allowed to leave the community once you're part of it. So, happy to see you there again. Yeah, this whole thing, Cody left AEW to get jobbed out to Roman, and AEW did the biggest wrestling show ever. Who's laughing now? Honestly, I still think Cody is laughing because he has this unquestioned main event spot in the biggest wrestling company in the world, and will probably beat Roman at WrestleMania this year. As funny as him losing in the main event last year was. I mean, yeah, I love being jobbed out only to become one of the two pillar show's biggest baby faces for the rest of the year. Whether you think he's main event level or not, he's like one of the main. He's the top one or two baby faces in the company. It was funny seeing him get F5'd, yeah, and it was funny seeing him after the match with the chicken in the audience as well, and the chicken in the ring. Someone threw the little chicken. Anyway, this is why I support Punk. I mean, I've talked about it before, but Punk's the thing that caused all the controversy initially. Punk's statements after All Out last year when he beat Moxley for the title, knew he was hurt, and then just dropped an entire nuclear bomb on the company. I mean, we celebrate Punk for his like promo ability and pipe bombs and stuff. That's one of my favorite wrestling promos ever. Ever. It's so iconic. Punk there dripping with blood and sweat and eating little muffins and just trashing the entire company, I think is so fucking hilarious, and just absolutely destroying this kind of backstage culture and the kind of the way he perceived to have been like backstabbed and like manipulated, and the way people have been using the press. It's so fucking funny. I laugh. It pops me every time I watch it. It's so fantastic. It's one of my favorite wrestling promos ever. That All Out promo. And again, you got Tony Khan there being like just mugging and doing these hilarious faces as Punk just completely destroys everybody and completely calls out all this stuff. God, it's just fantastic. Regardless of what happened, Punk's 2 years in AEW kept me constantly entertained. Honestly, like it's a fantastic run. His feud with MJF was so great. His return was so great. It's sad that it got derailed by the injuries and by this kind of backstage drama, but I don't buy this narrative that toxic CM Punk and that's the only reason this stuff happened. I think he had genuine, legitimate grievances, and it's not even really about like Jack Perry, but like that was kind of the put yourself in Punk's shoes when he's at the stadium and he sees this piece of shit jobber guy in the opening match look right in the camera and like deliberately call him out after this culmination of years and years of bullshit that he's been dealing with. I kind of get it, I really do. Yeah, the Eddie program was really good. Well, and Jay, this is a good point. Imagine not liking Hangman Adam Page, aka the nicest wrestler in the world. Honestly, I really like Hangman. And you know what? I like the Young Bucks too. I'm not one of these like people that has taken this side and I can't stand these elite guys. Kenny Omega, I think, has been one of the best wrestlers in the world, if not the best, going on 5-6 years now. I like what the Bucks do. I like their matches. I like their throwback look to like the Rockers and the Hardys and all this stuff. I like what they do. But I really do think they've been deeply implicated in creating this kind of like environment and deliberately antagonizing Punk to try and like create these kinds of situations. I would simply ignore it because I'm not a baby, but I guess that's not how Punk's wired. I mean, it's never been. He doesn't tolerate this kind of bullshit. And I guess, I'm one of those people that Adam Page promo that started all this drama. I agreed that, like, you know, it's just he's trying to bring in these personal issues. He's whatever you want to call it, a worked shoot or whatever. I thought freaking the fuck out over that was a bit much. But also I do understand, too, that, like, Punk is being... The narrative in the media being promoted with these wrestling journalists was that he, like, intentionally got this guy fired, you know? And that was promoted. And this idea that he's anti-worker or that he's bad for the situation. I mean, I understand why that was upsetting to be accused of that on national TV in an unplanned promo segment. I think that it was just a no-brainer after All Out of last year to just build to a fucking wrestling match with Punk and the Elite and maybe FTR and whatever else. That, to me, if you have a wrestling company, is just the very obvious solution to all of that stuff. You take those real personal issues and translate it into a fucking wrestling match. That's what I would simply do in my wrestling company. But this never happened. And this is a testament to Tony Khan's total inability to manage this locker room and manage this situation. The day after All Out, he should have been sitting down at a table with the Elite, with Punk, and say, what is the problem here? Let's get to the bottom of this so we can make money, which is what we're supposed to do in our wrestling company. Let's solve this thing now so we can fucking have a wrestling match and that incorporates all the ways that this is like everyone is talking about this incident. Let's turn that into a wrestling match where we all win. We all make money. I do, and this is it, Jay. Like, I do think Punk tried to extend an olive branch and offer to sit down with the Elite, which they refused. And that's what I mean. That's Tony Khan. What do you mean they refuse? He's the fucking boss. We're meeting at this time. We're meeting on this day. The fact that it took up until like the week before the Wembley Stadium show is insane to me. It's insanity. How does Tony Khan not just say, like, we're sitting down at this time? It's not optional. If you're the Young Bucks, you don't get to be like, oh no, that doesn't work for us, brother. No, I'm the fucking boss. I'm the boss. Here's when we're meeting, and here's where we're going to figure out what to do about this situation. That's just really pathetic on Tony Khan's part that he couldn't manage to control this situation and turn it into a wrestling match, which would have been really cool for everybody involved and the fans of the sport as well. No, Vince would never. That's absolutely right. Anybody free to try and dunk on Rob for re-emphasizing the power bosses should flex over their employees? You'll notice that I also encouraged employees to violently assault their bosses as well. The funniest thing about any of this stuff is me learning that Meltzer is still around for some reason. People still listening to him. Yeah, and he's got wrestlers that's feeding him information. There's all these different wrestling journalists who fancy themselves like part of the locker room, basically, that are being totally worked by these wrestlers to promote their own agenda. And there's fans, I think, that are buying into it, buying into the propaganda. Don't cancel me, Red Scary. Come on, don't do that. Don't do that, please. Anyway, Jay, you're a valued, trusted community member. Respect your opinion, but that's why I take these stances. That's my view on the whole situation. Not on the side of the bosses. You know, as a wrestling fan, I want AEW to succeed and put on an entertaining wrestling product, which would be good for the wrestlers, the people that actually have to work in this promotion. And I think that would have gone a long way towards doing that. This is the most talked about wrestling angle of last year, and it turned into nothing at all. I think that's inexcusable. I have to look, like, I'm sorry, but how do you not like this? It's just so great. Every single time, I don't need to watch the whole thing, but it's just, this is one of my favorite things that's ever happened in wrestling history, honestly. It was so great. Everything about this is so funny. And honestly, like on a personal level, I was going through kind of a fucked up time last year, and this happened right in the midst of it, and I really like psychologically latched onto this as a coping mechanism. So I have a personal connection to it as well. I just love this, though. This is one of my favorite promos ever.
Nick Hausmith Wrestling Inc.
I'll start, Nick.
He's ready to
Show
go.
of hands.
Right off the bat. He knows exactly what he's going to do. He's like, I'm ready to drop a fucking atom bomb on this situation. Look at him. He's raring to go.
Who here fancies themselves as a journalist? You're a journalist, Nick? All
I
right.
try my best.
Okay.
I don't think Tony knows what's about to happen.
real
He might
quick,
have a suspicion.
You still do improv?
Tony's
No, not
reactions throughout this whole thing is just unbelievably
You
funny.
did improv. Who'd you do improv with?
I did it with Scott Colton.
Okay, so you fancy yourself a journalist. Would you say you're friends with Scott Colton?
No, I haven't talked to Scott in some time.
So you're not friends with him?
No, Scott.
You
and I
can count on me. You're
yet.
going to have
Oh,
good
wow.
old
That
Rob
makes
to
two of us.
talk you through all this.
Hi.
Blursid0, thank you for the 3 months. Very much appreciated. Thank you, Blursid.
My point is, if you fancy yourself a journalist, even if it's for the silly world of professional wrestling, and you have journalistic integrity, people who report things, mostly that are bullshit, and slanderous lies against myself, if you are friends with somebody, you blew my spot. If you're not friends with them, I apologize. It's okay. But you should probably disclose who you're friends with.
Tony's like, now he's like,
problem.
oh, fuck.
I haven't had anything to do with Scott Colton in almost a decade. Probably wanted nothing to do with him even longer than that. It's fucking unfortunate that I have to come up here and speak on this when I'm on my time and this is a fucking business. Why I'm a grown-ass adult man and I decide not to be friends with somebody is nobody else's fucking business. But my friends, if I fall backwards, will catch me. Scott Colton, I felt, never would have. My problem was I wanted to bring a guy with me to the top that did not want to see me at the top.
Even if you don't know nothing about wrestling, even if you hate Punk like CM Punk, you know nothing about the situation, this is just entertaining from watching billionaire Tony Khan sitting next to him this entire time. Just keep your eye on him, and it's just unbelievably funny the entire time.
Okay? You call it jealousy, you call it envy, whatever the fuck it is. My relationship with Scott Colton ended long before I paid all of his bills. I have every receipt. I have every invoice. I have every email. I have the email where he says, and I quote, "I agree to go our separate ways. I will get my own lawyer and you do not have to pay anymore." That's an email that I have. The only reason the public did not see
I don't know. I don't
because
care about Colt
when
Cabana.
I finally had to countersue him through discovery, we
Don't care.
discovered he shared a bank account with his mother. That's a fact. And as soon as we discovered that fact and we subpoenaed old Marcia, he sent the email, "Oh, can we please drop all this?" Now, it's 2022. I haven't been friends with this guy since at least 2014, late 2013. And the fact that I have to sit up here because we have irresponsible people who call themselves EVPs
He's taking off his, like,
and
wrist
couldn't
tape.
fucking manage a target, and they spread lies and bullshit and put into a media that I got somebody fired when I have fuck all to do with him. Want nothing to do with him. Do not care where he works, where he doesn't work, where he eats, where he sleeps. And the fact that I have to get up here and do this in 2022 is fucking embarrassing. And if y'all are at fault, fuck you. If you're not, I apologize. But what did I ever do in this world to deserve an empty-headed fucking dumb fuck like Hangman Adam Page to go out on national television and fucking...
I'm sorry. I've told you, I like Hangman Adam Page. I think he seems like a swell guy. I like his wrestling ability. That's so funny, though, and that's something I've used since that time. When you really want to go after someone, fucking empty-headed dumb fuck is like the funniest thing to say. But Jay, he did pay the legal tab, though. He did pay all his bills until up to a point.
Go into business for himself. For what? What did I do, Dave? What did I ever do?
You tell me.
Didn't do a goddamn thing. What's your name, sir?
Mark Henry supports Punk. Mark Henry was doing this kind of sarcastic take on it where he's like, now the so-called problem has been removed, so no one will complain anymore. Mark Henry is on the Punk faction.
Angela? Fuck the Pittsburgh Penguins. What are you doing? I'm from Pittsburgh.
I made it really clear in Forbes, and I just want to make it clear again. Nick,
It's not his position to make it very fucking clear.
Shushing his billionaire
people who call
boss.
themselves EVPs that should have fucking known better. This shit was none of their business. I understand sticking up for your fucking friends. I fucking get it. I stuck up for that guy more than anybody. Okay? I paid his bills until I didn't, and it was my decision not to.
Yeah, but I shouldn't have no commented when Nick first said it. It's my fault, and if I hadn't, it's my fault. It's my fault.
I appreciate
I
that.
should have
but
just taken it head on because you never
But
said
I'm trying to
anything.
run a fucking business, and when somebody who hasn't done a damn thing in this business jeopardizes the first $1 million house that this company has ever drawn off of my back and goes on national television and does that, it's a disgrace to this industry, it's a disgrace to this company. Now, we're far beyond apologies, right? I gave him a fucking chance. It did not get handled, and you saw what I had to do, which is very regrettable, lowering myself to his fucking level. But that's where we're at right now. And I will still walk up and down this hallway and say, if you have a fucking problem with me, take it up with me. Let's fucking go. What's your question, Nick?
First of all, you're always very nice to me, and thank you. I wanted to ask you about MJF, obviously.
He can't let it go.
Voicemail from
They're
you
trying to
before
change
it
the
came out.
subject. Look at him.
Obviously confronted you, Punk. Why now? Why is MJF back in the fold now? How do you both feel about him being around? How do you feel about the time he spent away? All of that.
Well, if I may, I'm the one who asked him to come back because MJF's a big star in this company, and this is one of the biggest events. A year ago, CM Punk debuted here, and I thought it was right for the fans. And like I said, for the fans, I thought the best thing that we could do as a company was bring MJF back.
He wants me to work with pricks constantly. That's what it is.
Nevertheless, two of the top wrestlers in the world, MJF and CM Punk, could be a big match down the line.
Sorry to keep bringing this fucking up, but I've never spoken his word, and I don't know how long, so I'm a little fucking pissed off.
We're not
about
moving
it.
past this.
When it came down that he was going to sue me, I asked to talk to him. He refused. I asked for mediation. It was denied. I offered him money. He said it was not enough. He went ahead with the lawsuit and sued. It's his fucking funeral. I don't care. He shares a bank account with his mother. It tells you all you need to know about what kind of character that is.
You were always very nice to me. Thank you.
I appreciate it, Nick. I'm sorry if I'm a little fucking snippy.
That's fine. That's
I'm
fine.
hurt and I'm old and I'm fucking tired.
I
and
totally-
I work with fucking children.
I respect the situation.
I'm sorry. I know you might not agree. Not everyone agrees. Not everyone is on the same page here. I get it. That to me is just iconic, though. That's just fantastic. That's one of my favorite wrestling promos ever. Regardless of who you think's right or wrong. Regardless of who you think's right or wrong, you know, I get it. That to me is just fantastic. I like how this has actually brought Marty, who's a famous CM Punk hater, has brought him closer to the Punk perspective. I appreciate that. Like, again, you don't have to like him in the ring that much, or you think he's lost a step, or he's not that good. I definitely don't think he's as good at the actual wrestling part as maybe he once was, but that to me is just fantastic. Yeah, and just Tony's react. Tony trying to throw cold water on the situation. He's just like, "No, shut up, Tony. I'm in charge here." Fantastic. And again, this is the kind of environment he's working in. I'm not surprised he snapped at disrespectful jobber Jungle Jack Perry when he shoots on him in front of like 70,000 people or whatever. No, this was very real, Dakadu, and I think that's what made it entertaining. And this is what Punk's done his whole career, is taking the very real things and mixing it with the kayfabe and, you know, doing this kind of stuff and getting people talking. But yeah, this was all real grievances that just exploded in this moment. Because at this point too, Punk knows he's been hurt in this match. He like tore his triceps, I think. So he knew that he was going to be out for a while. So he's like, all right, I'm going to sit down at this press conference and completely air out all these grievances and just completely nuke the whole situation. I think that's why I like him. That's why I kind of admire him. Because like I hate confrontation. It makes me very uncomfortable. And he's in this situation where he's got all this kind of passive aggressive stuff happening. And most people would be like, you know, and try and like not make a big deal of it or do whatever. And Punk is the opposite. He's just like, I'm going to completely nuke this entire situation, no matter what the collateral damage is, no matter what happens. I like that. I respect that. I did like that Moxley promo as well. Anyway, now that I've eaten up all this time singing songs and talking about a little bit of wrestling, I had to get this off my chest though, because this was a big. I'm glad you brought it up, Jay. Even if I might not agree with your stance, I'm glad you brought it up because I wanted to talk about this because I am a pro wrestling fan. I'm a former pro wrestling journalist, you know. So I'm glad I got an opportunity to rant about it a little bit. Anyways, not that I was planning on it too much. Yeah, no, that's fine, Jay. I don't mind at all. Don't mind at all. Not mad about it at all. Let's get it a little more. I got about 30 minutes to go. Let's get into the rest of the serious discourse that I wanted to talk about. We're shooting on each other here, Jay. I just love that. That is one of my favorite. I mean, you talk about the Punk pipe bomb promo, which is the thing that really like brought me back into pro wrestling, to paying attention to it again. That to me, if it doesn't eclipse the pipe bomb promo, excuse me, it comes close. That to me is one of my favorite events in wrestling history. That promo there. So I don't know how long I'm going to have. I have got about half an hour to talk about this. I want to talk a little bit about Elon Musk and his burgeoning feud with the ADL, and the kind of line I think we have to walk as socialists, as leftists, or whatever, when we talk about this issue and when we talk about the anti-Semitism in general. I think it's actually important to talk about. And this goes back to what I've been talking about all day, really, when you talk like the way X.com, the Everything app, has been kind of like taken over by these fascist sympathizing, many times openly anti-Semitic blue checks, and the undeniable shift that has happened. Not that these people weren't prevalent on Twitter previously, they very much were, but the way that they've been through this kind of like Twitter blue check thing have been now promoted to like have all their conspiracies and Nazi ideas not only monetized but brought to an even larger audience than they were before. They were maybe slightly marginalized before, not banned but marginalized. The pipe bomb is a typical promo with real issues injected in. The muffin promo is just real venting, so it hits a lot different. It just while he's eating the muffins too, just elevates it to another level for me. Joe 110 says, a longtime pro-Palestine guy. I'm very aware of the ADL in general, but when Elon attacks them, I start to question my views. And here's the thing: this is what we need to talk about, which is that I don't think anyone should question their views about the ADL. The ADL actually is, in fact, like it's basically part of this sort of Zionist propaganda arm, right? The ADL has conflated this idea of anti-Semitism and Zionism. The ADL was heavily implicated in Jeremy Corbyn and Jeremy Corbyn's
You can count on me. You're gonna have good old Rob to talk you through all this.
The whole
Wow, 24 months. And now that I hold it in my hands, I see that it actually is made of pure 24-karat gold, and all the references to urine were just childish nonsense. I love Gould.
GMO Radio, thank you so much for 24 months of resub at tier 2. Congratulations to you for the highly elite, highly exclusive 24-month, 2-year TRRS sub badge. Thank you for that. And Red Scare, I mean, this is the basic point, right? Fuck the ADL and fuck Elon as well. You do not have to hand it to him. Two things can be true here. The ADL has weaponized this idea of anti-Semitism to go after people who are not anti-Semitic, such as Jeremy Corbyn, or to smear the entire UK left-wing movement, socialist movement, as being anti-Semitic. They have conflated this idea of anti-Semitism with people that are critical of Israel, critical of Zionism, critical of the Israeli settler colonialist apartheid project. That is true. But two things can be true, though. Not only is that true, and I'm just showing this example from the ADL, they're going after Corbyn. After it was reported that the UK Labour leader Jeremy Corbyn had laid a wreath at the graves of Palestinian terrorists, blah, 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 talking about these reactionary Jewish communities and organizations that were a part of this smear job against Jeremy Corbyn, which was not entirely Jewish organizations, to be 100% clear. A lot of the people that were hurling around these accusations towards Jeremy Corbyn about being anti-Semitic were not themselves Jewish. In fact, as we've talked about, many of the people who were supporting Corbyn and who were trying to be involved in this project of turning the Labour Party in Britain into a more socialist direction were themselves Jewish. Many of these people were accused themselves of being anti-Semites for supporting Corbyn. And Jews were being persecuted and suspended and kicked out of the Labour Party because of these flagrantly false accusations through organizations such as the ADL. Two things can be true here, though. That is true, and also, we don't need to hand it to Elon Musk, who now has, picked this fight with the ADL, saying he's threatening to sue the ADL because they've talked about the uptick in anti-Semitism on X.com, the Everything app. And amazingly, hilariously suggesting that they are responsible. I'll actually look at the tweet. It's truly remarkable. Something that only an extremely dumb guy could possibly come up with here. Where is it? To clear our platform's name on the matter of anti-Semitism, it looks like we have no choice but to file a defamation lawsuit against the Anti-Defamation League. He says, interesting. In our case, they could potentially be on the hook for destroying half the value of the company, so roughly $22 billion. So, a couple of things wrong with that, right? The company has never been worth what Elon Musk paid for it, because he paid $44 billion for it, and as he admits, their advertising revenues have declined by over 50%, so he just does the mental math and says, oh yeah, $22 billion. Completely preposterous, because he himself would admit that he overpaid for Twitter to a hilarious extent. He basically was just a meme number, essentially. So the idea that that they're responsible for that and that's worth a $22 billion lawsuit is hilarious in and of itself. And yeah, two things are true here. We don't need to hand it to the ADL. I think the ADL is not a good organization. I think it has been actually a gift to actual real anti-Semites and has obscured very real anti-Semitism that Jewish people have to endure by equating criticism of Israel or support for Palestinian dignity or human rights with being anti-Semitic. The ADL has been a big part of that, and I think that's disgraceful. Like I was saying, a lot of the people that were being accused of anti-Semitism in the British Labour Party were themselves Jewish. Whereas the people that were the Jewish people defenders were these like non-Jew reactionaries or like Blairite centrists, radical centrists in the Labour Party. But the idea that like that's the reason, the ADL is the reason that Twitter has lost advertising revenue when Elon Musk has taken over, and all his, like, this is all directly related to his own decisions, not only changing the branding of this well-known and liked company, removing the idea of Twitter or tweets or retweets or any of that stuff, changing it to this generic bullshit, which he thinks is cool because he's trapped in this kind of like 1998 dorm goth, cyber goth mentality. And then like, yeah, antagonizing all these journalists and people that are on the website, empowering his new like right-wing fans to have their views, many of times are indeed anti-Semitic or racist or fascist sympathizing, promoting them to like the top of like all the replies, making sure that they have the most reach for their opinions because they're paying for it. Yeah, I'm sorry I don't want to drag goths into it. It's true. This is the reason that Twitter has lost value. It's not that complicated. It's not because of the ADL. And frankly, when someone like Elon Musk is going after the ADL, regardless of whatever real criticisms he might have for the organization of the ADL, this is just a way to talk about the Jews, right? That's what Elon is doing. Is it my own personal decisions that I've taken that have tanked the value of this company that I overpaid for? Or is it the Jews? That's what Elon is saying right now. And we don't have to support or uphold the ADL or pretend the ADL is like a good organization to acknowledge that. And in fact, it's what makes it a really tricky territory for us to talk about, I think, because we can't allow the reality that groups like the ADL have, in my view, totally falsely created this narrative about criticism of Israel or support for Palestine as being anti-Semitic, which we know is not true. And a lot of like mainstream political parties have bought into this, whether it's the Labour Party in the UK, whether it's the NDP or the Liberal Party or whoever. That is really something that is worth criticism. But we can't let that then allow room for these genuine anti-Semites to start talking about this issue and whitewash their own very real anti-Semitism. I think we do need to be careful when we talk about this and understand and try to hold two thoughts in our mind at the same time here. I think, yeah, our good friend Eli Valley, I know exactly what tweet that you're sending here, Diego. The ADL is an apartheid advocacy organization, and also the current campaign against it is orchestrated by genocidal Nazis that Musk has recruited to be the dominant voices on Twitter. I mean, this is the easiest explanation of this, and Eli Valley is someone who has done... I mean, Eli Valley himself gets accused, despite being a prominent Jewish activist who campaigns for Palestinian solidarity and Palestinian human rights and criticizes Israel, is often accused himself of being an anti-Semite by organizations like the ADL, which is, we've talked about many times, is totally fucking preposterous. But that doesn't change the reality of these changes that Musk has made to the platform. And going after the ADL is kind of a way to kind of whitewash these very real phenomena, which I think we need to be wary of. Let's just look at this. Like, the idea that it's because of the ADL that Twitter's or these false accusations of anti-Semitism are preposterous. Like, here's example number one. Here's example number one. Okay? this tweet here from the date is not on it. The date's not on it. This was fairly recent, though. You look as hot as I feel. Thank you, Sean. Or derogatory. Okay. Not good. Top Lobster, blue check Twitter account, has this picture of Joe Biden and this picture of Mel Gibson. Says, you can do if we're wondering whether there's anti-Semitism on Twitter, here's our first piece of evidence, okay? We can judge for ourselves. Is it the ADL that's falsely creating this narrative, or is that a genuine phenomenon? Well, let's put on our thinking caps, our Sherlock Holmes deerstalker caps, and grab our pipes and try to get to the bottom of this little mystery. Let's look at this tweet from Top Lobster. Who says, has a picture of Biden and a picture of jacked Mel Gibson. And says, you can do adrenochrome or you can hate the Jays. Which way, Western men? I'm just going to repeat that. You can from Top Lobster, blue check Twitter account, or x.com account, excuse me. You can do adrenochrome or you can, quote, hate the Jays. Which way, Western men? And lo and behold, look who it is in the replies. Elon Musk, responding to this comment, which features this, quote, accusation of this idea of hating the Jays. And Elon says, Gibson is really that buff these days? Thereby, not only is that viewpoint being boosted by the Twitter, the blue check thing, Musk himself replies to it, which surely got that post seen by quite literally millions more people. So, number one, if we're asking this basic question, is there this problem online on Twitter or x.com with anti-Semitism or with these right-wing views being promoted? I would think the answer is yes, and we don't have to support the ADL to acknowledge that. In fact, I don't support the ADL, but it's not the ADL's fault that these accusations are happening. His hate Jay's Twitter filter pinged, so we had to comment. Exactly, yeah. Can you scroll back up? Sure. And first of all, this whole thing, you can do adrenochrome or you can hate the Jays, with the idea that Mel Gibson, like, if he is indeed, as Elon was wondering, that jacked, like, he's not injecting all kinds of HGH and other bullshit. Like, that is amazing. He's like 70 years old. Of course, he's injecting himself with all kinds of, whether it's adrenochrome or not. Mel Gibson is on the gas. I think it's pretty silly to think that it's because of, quote, hating the Jays, that's the reason that he looks like that. What do these pics have to do with adrenochrome or Jews? Well, he's suggesting that Joe Biden is taking adrenochrome because he's a liberal Satanist child trafficker, and Mel Gibson is ripped because he, quote, hates the Jays. So I think if you're wondering why advertisers are maybe a little leery about advertising on x.com, the everything app, and if you think this idea that anti-Semitism is prevalent on the platform and has been promoted by Elon Musk's new regime, I think there's plenty of evidence that that is true, and we don't have to rely on the ADL or any of these other kind of reactionary pro-apartheid organizations to acknowledge that just easy reality. Let's look actually more at Eli Valley, because Eli had a couple of tweets about this where he's talking with Cernovich as well. And this speaks to something as well about Elon Musk, where he thinks now that, like, or maybe part of the way his brain is specifically broken, is that he thinks that everyone that's mean to him online is a bot. That's why he talks about this bot problem. He says, to be super clear, which is something that you always have to say when you're not anti-Semitic or support other anti-Semitic people. To be super clear, I'm pro free speech, but against anti-Semitism of any kind, which... Just going to go ahead and look at that one more time. I think I'm going to have to call bullshit on that one, just given this one little piece of evidence here. So Mike Cernovich, this proud rapist QAnon Pizzagate conspiracy theorist who also has his views artificially boosted by the Twitter blue algorithm, says it's been proven that Democrat groups buy bots to falsely smear people via association. How many anti-Semitic accounts are real versus how many are funded, operated by the DNC to create fear and division? And Musk says it's impossible to tell with unverified accounts whether you're dealing with a small or large number of real people, as sophisticated bots are virtually indistinguishable from humans. He really thinks that anyone that's against him on Twitter is just a bot. With unverified accounts, there's also no way to tell if the organization complaining was somehow complicit in creating the very thing they complain about. So suggesting as well that the ADL, if there is anti-Semites operating on Twitter, the ADL is actually creating these things, creating these accounts and falsely creating these anti-Semitic content in order to falsely smear him and others as supporting this, which, again, I'm just going to go ahead and look at that image right there. Like if he's saying Top Lobster is an account that's being supported by the DNC or the ADL or whoever to falsely pretend that anti-Semites exist on Twitter, he's there promoting the account and replying to it. So, I don't know about that. Really amazing to see Elon Musk repeatedly engage with the neo-Nazi about what is and isn't anti-Semitism. This is after more than a year of Musk engaging with other anti-Semites, white nationalists, and neo-Nazis. Keith Woods. Alex Jones doesn't want to ban the ADL because they're the most pro-Hitler organization I've ever seen. The ADL, because they're so aggressive in their demands, Elon says the ADL, because they're so aggressive in their demands to ban social media accounts for even minor infractions, are ironically the biggest generators of anti-Semitism on this platform. This is that guy Keith Woods. These are the kind of things that Keith Woods, who Elon Musk is engaging with on this, shares on Twitter, aka X.com. And this is what I mean. We can't allow these fucking Nazis and fascists to use the very real issues with the ADL and the ADL version of anti-Semitism that they've been promoting to whitewash their own very, very real anti-Semitism. As I was saying, I think that's one of the big problems with these groups, such as the ADL, is they provide a kind of cover. They accuse people like Jeremy Corbyn of anti-Semitism for promoting and supporting Palestinian human rights or criticizing Israel. And then they they weaponize anti-Semitism to destroy people like Jeremy Corbyn, which allows people like Keith Woods then, who are genuine, actual anti-Semites, and that's not hyperbole. That's not me slandering anyone. This is this is basically a Nazi meme that he's sharing right here under his own name. But yeah, we can't allow the very real issues with the ADL to allow people like Keith Woods to whitewash their own very real anti-Semitism. Yeah, again, look at the shit that Keith Woods is sharing, like during the George Floyd protests. And Elon Musk right there chatting with them over it. So the idea that that there's anti-Semitism on Twitter, or that the reason that advertisers are fleeing the platform has nothing to do with the ADL. And this is actually a very, very real phenomenon. And I want to say as well, if I can just find... Yes, okay, I can find... This is the last thing I wanted to look at, and I got to say goodbye soon. It says, since the acquisition... Oh, let's open this in a new tab. Since the acquisition, the ADL has been trying to kill this platform by falsely accusing it and me of being anti-Semitic. And again, plenty of real evidence. Plenty of real evidence. Like we've looked at it on this stream. We were just looking at it. Falsely accusing me or this platform of anti-Semitism. And he says, our U.S. advertising revenue is still down 60%, primarily due to pressure on advertisers by ADL. That's what advertisers tell us. So they almost succeeded in killing X/Twitter, which is hilarious that he can't even commit to the whole X thing. He acknowledges that no one actually refers to it as that. But it's like, have advertisers really? I'm sure the advertisers are thrilled that this information is being revealed. Oh, the advertisers are telling us. It's because of these claims. I'm sure they're just thrilled about that. Will you take the action on these false allegations? If this continues, we'll have no choice but to file a defamation suit against, ironically, the Anti-Defamation League. If they lose the defamation suit, we'll insist that they drop the anti part of their name, since obviously, and then of course the classic Elon cry laughing face. But I mean, that's really all I wanted to say about it. The idea that that's the reason that advertisers are fleeing the platform and not the very real phenomenon of Elon empowering these genuine anti-Semites and interacting with them and engaging with them and promoting their viewpoints is fucking preposterous. That doesn't mean we need to support the ADL or stand with the ADL. The ADL is an extremely problematic organization. The way that they've weaponized the idea of anti-Semitism to go after good people, such as Jeremy Corbyn, with these totally unfounded smear jobs, I think is grotesque, and I don't agree with them either. But we can't let Elon Musk or any of these reactionaries take that very real phenomenon and use it to justify or whitewash their own very real anti-Semitism. And because we're decent and intelligent people, we are able to hold more than one thought in our minds at the same time. I know many of the time this seems very difficult for some folks on Twitch and Twitter or X or any other social media network, YouTube, what have you. But because we're, intelligent, rational, critical thinking people, we are in fact able to do that. Folks, as I've said, I got a hard cut off at 3 o'clock right now. I got to make sure I pick up my kid on time from school. That is why I'm now trying to start the stream a little bit earlier. So you'll notice that I started the stream around 11:30 today. I am aiming to start the stream at 11 moving forward, in order that I have enough time to talk about everything that I need to talk about, hit the targets that I need to hit, etc. Thank you, Joe110. I appreciate it. I'm glad you stopped by today as well. And again, folks, if you want to support this show, you want to support this content, you want to ensure that this content stays on the air, you want to get all the tiny little images, you want to join the community, join Twitch's only two-dimensional triangle-shaped trickle-down clout and friendship access tiered reward system, you can please subscribe. It costs $5 per month. It's totally free of charge with an Amazon Prime account. Right now, new subs are discounted, as well as upgrades from Tier 1 to Tier 2 or 3, and upgrades from 1 month to 3 months or 6 months. That's what's going on in September. So please, if you can, folks, subscribe to TRRS. Can we get a few more subscribers before I got to sign off in 4 minutes from now? Does anyone else want to support this content? I've been ranting and raving all day today. What if I want to join a cult? Again, it's not a cult or a pyramid scheme. We've talked about that a number of times. So if that's what you want, if that's what you're into.
Rob Russo, some leftist based in Canada. I was turned on to this sick individual.
Good timing.
I found this.
Majority Report, thanks for the raid. Thank you very much for the raid, Majority Report. I appreciate it a lot. Thank you, folks. Hey, I'm Rob. Hello. It's nice to see you. You know what? One thing that you can do, Majority Report, if you've just raided in here, is to please smash the follow button. If you could please smash the follow button, I'm just a few follows away from hitting the 9K number. I'm very close to hitting that 9K number. So if you can, take 30 seconds out of your day to hit the little follow button. It would help me out immensely. Thank you very much. I was just talking about, just to sum you up before we go here, because I do have to get going pretty soon. I was just talking about this whole Elon Musk anti-Semitism thing. And
anti-Semitism. Count on me. You're gonna have good old Rob to talk you through all this.
Midwest Manitoba, thank you so much for 3 months tier 1. I really appreciate that. Thank you. And it's not a cult. If that's what you were looking for, I apologize, but I still really appreciate the support. Anyway, we're just laughing at this idea that Elon Musk thinks that the reason that advertisers have fled Twitter is because of some kind of fake smear campaign by the ADL. And I was talking about how I don't think the ADL is a good organization. I think there's a lot of problematic things that they engage with, smearing people that are not against Jewish people or are not anti-Semitic, smearing them as anti-Semites because they criticize Israel. They stand up for Palestinian human rights. I don't agree with that. I don't agree with that strategy on the part of the ADL. I think it's kind of grotesque, actually. But the ADL is not the reason that advertisers have fled Twitter. And it's certainly not false to suggest that there's anti-Semitism prevalent on Twitter or X.com, or that it's been increased or intensified after Elon Musk has taken over. I think that's undeniable. Whether you like the ADL or not, that's just an undeniable reality. And if you want just an example of this, don't ask me, ask Elon Musk himself, responding to this account a couple months ago from Top Lobster, saying you can do adrenochrome or you can hate the Jays. Which way, Western men? And Elon Musk saying Gibson is really that buff these days? To this response by someone literally saying you can hate the Jays. And Elon Musk not only promoting that viewpoint with Twitter Blue and the whole blue check thing, but then responding to it and boosting it in the algorithm because of the number of followers and supporters that he has. So yeah, I think it's a pretty preposterous thing to suggest that the ADL is the reason that advertisers have fled Twitter.com. I think that's very silly. Or this, you have like Elon Musk right here talking to this guy Keith Woods about this very issue, suggesting that the ADL is like smearing him, or that the ADL is part of this notion of like having bots and falsely accusing Twitter or Elon of promoting anti-Semitism. Look at the very guy that he's talking to, Keith Woods, just a few years ago, right on there, sharing extremely anti-Semitic, openly Nazi memes on Twitter. You have Elon Musk promoting and supporting these very accounts. So that's just a completely factual statement. When you talk about the fact that anti-Semitism is prevalent on Twitter, it was previously, and it is now, but it's been increased and encouraged since Musk has taken over the platform. So that's what I was talking about today. Unfortunately, I do have to get going. It's my kid's first day of school, so I got to go pick him up. But folks, and here's one thing you can also do, folks, if you just joined the stream for the first time, which is subscribe. If you can, if you want to. Okay? I got to make the little number go up every single day. I'm close to the goal, not quite there. We got brand new subs right now, are discounted. Upgraded subs from tier 1 to tier 2 to tier 3 are discounted. Upgrading from 1 month to 3 months or 6 months is discounted. Every little bit helps. So if you can, folks, please subscribe to TRRS. It really helps me out. It supports this content. It helps keep this show on the air. And you get to be part of a wonderful dynamic community, and you get a bunch of really great tiny little images. Some of the very, very best tiny little images on the entire platform of Twitch. So before I go, does anyone else want to subscribe to TRRS? Can we get a few more subscribers before I have to go pick up my kid from school? What do we say? What do we say, folks? Look at this face. I've been ranting and raving for 3 hours now. I've been ranting and raving for 3 hours. No, I'm not going to say it, Jay. I'm sorry. I'm not going to say it. I'm not going to give you the satisfaction. And I need those 5 subs, but I'm not doing it. That's going to be a no for me.
You've just become an elite member of the Friendship Triangle.
Blocky Boy, thank you for the 5 gifted subs. I really appreciate that. And that's your first 5 gifted subs in the channel, Blocky Boy. That immediately rockets you right up to the very tippy top, the elite tier of the Friendship Triangle system. That's Twitch's only 2-dimensional triangle-shaped friendship access and trickle-down clout tiered reward system. It's the only such system that exists on this entire platform. You're right at the very tippy top of the elite tier right now. The tip of the spear. Edge of the knife. Exactly. Thank you very much, Blocky Boy. I really appreciate it. And if you also just joined the stream, folks, join the Discord server.
You've just become an elite member of the Friendship Triangle.
Oh, goodness. Chaos the Gardener. Chaos the Gardener, thanks for the 5 gifted subs. I love it. Thank you so much. I really, really appreciate that. But join the Discord server as well, folks. That's one thing you can do totally free of charge, and you can join the community there. It's really wonderful. It is really wonderful, the Discord community. I really highly encourage people to click that as well and to join that. We are 3 subs away from the goal, folks. We are 3 subs away. Does anyone else want to support TRRS and help drag my ass across the finish line for today? It's been a lot of hooting and hollering today. A lot of ranting and raving. Blocky Boy, it's fantastic to have you. I'm so happy to hear that. Been looking for a good Discord community, and I'll tell you, and I know I'm biased, but I'm telling you my completely true, real opinion, which is that the Discord community is the very best such community that is out there, if you're into this kind of stuff.
You can count on me. You're gonna have good old Rob to talk you through all this.
Okay, Blocky Boy, now you're getting a little crazy. Now you're getting crazy with it. Oh, Fart Party gifted the sub. Excuse me. I was only looking at the screen. Fart Party 69, thank you for the gifted sub. Thank you so much, Fart Party 69, one of our truly valued community members. We're 2 subs away, folks. 2 subs away. I'm hitting that goal. A non-subscriber gifting subs? Now I've seen everything. So we're going to raid our mutual friend, DJ Mule. We got another minute, folks. 2 subs to go. Is 1 or 2 brave heroes want to step up and drag TRRS across the finish line for today? So close. Agonizingly close. We need a hero. That's right. Can we do it?
You can count on me. You're gonna have good old Rob to talk you through all this.
Sunny Sola, thank you. Thank you for the 2 gifted subs. That's so kind of you. I really appreciate all the support lately. Sunny Sola. Thank you. Fantastic. Thank you so much, folks. This has been a fun stream. I will be back tomorrow. Again, I'm trying to get started at 11 a.m. now. I'm really going to try to start the stream at 11 a.m. That's 12 a.m. Pyongyang time, to ensure that I have enough time and space to talk about everything that I need to talk about and to hit the goals that I need to hit. Good start so far. Thanks again, folks. Please give my regards to DJ Mule. Very cool guy, very nice guy, who will be able to talk a lot about this Corbin situation that I alluded to earlier. I'll see you folks tomorrow and in the Discord server. I love you. Thank you. Goodbye.